On the 12th month of this year, my podcast gave to me 12 Doonrise clashes, 11 Guru mirrors, 10 months worth using, 9 tails in Stuttgart, 8 turns to Rage Fist, 7-11 gaming, 6 weeks delaying, 5 sets per day, 4 recent champs, 3 Lindos, 2 podcast hosts, and an intro that's kind of festive. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Show 6 podcast, your go-to address for all things competitive Pokemon Go. As I, Z's Wireless, and my co-host Speedy is Chief 2, who is currently losing it, are here to cover the official Championship Series for this game, as well as all things PvP. And we are back from a lengthy break. It was largely my fault because I fell sick for 2 weeks. But how are you feeling, Speedy?
Tears, literal tears. I started to tear up during that intro because it was so good. Everybody, I need you to give ZZ some feedback. If you see him at an event next year, if you just want to DM him, tell him how incredible that intro was. ZZ, I'm feeling great. You know that scheduling around the holidays is always pretty tricky. This is our first year of the podcast. I think that's also something we have to remember. Our first kind of holiday special, I guess you could say, for the show. And we have a lot to cover in this one, and I'm really excited to get back to it. So, yeah, I'm feeling great. I'm glad that you're feeling better, and I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, there's still like the odd cough, and this will come up a couple of times during this episode, but I'm not feeling as sick anymore, so I'm pretty sure I'll hold up just fine. And yeah, today on the schedule is essentially wrapping up the Tales of Transformation regular season with 3 events that are still outstanding that we haven't covered just yet.
Mhm.
Um, 2 of them happened before the Latin American International Championships, which is going to be the big ticket item to talk about. Those would be Buenos Aires as well as Las Vegas. And one happened after to essentially be the send off for Tales of Transformation, and that was in Europe, in Stuttgart. And yeah, we are going to cover it all. We are going to welcome champions old and new, and I think we should start with the new champion because LNDsAureo conquered Buenos Aires, and even though he came very close previously, I think he even finished as the runner-up of Buenos Aires the year prior. He hadn't won his gold medal yet, so this was a very special occasion for LNDsAureo, and he won his championship with a team that, to me, featured the Latin American bird, if I may use this phrasing, because
Oh,
the European bird, as everybody knows, is Talonflame, Shadow Talonflame, Talonflame these days. To me, the Latin American bird is Galarian Moltres. We had 3 regional champions from the GB Lindos camp this season already, and all of them featured Galarian Moltres on their winning team. If that isn't a fun fact, I don't know what is.
that's a very strong argument. I was looking at the top cut for Buenos Aires, and I did see more Corviknight than I do see Galarian Moltres. But when you point it out that way, it makes total sense, right? And this is a Pokemon that in the days of a Furret dominated meta where you constantly see that normal type everywhere, it feels like you wish you had that pure dark type Pokemon, something like a Galarian Moltres that could counter it. When I see the Galarian Moltres and the Shadow Steelix duo, though, I think of Bezo Boy, right? That is one of the most powerful cores, and to bring that team, to bring that core and the entire team around it was definitely interesting, right? Because there are a ton of picks on here that I personally didn't expect. The Shadow Kanto Marowak is probably the most neutral of the options here, but Charjabug, right? And then Jellicent. This is going to come up again when we talk about LAIC, but I was listening to C. Leonardo's conversation with LNDsAureo, and apparently the Jellicent pick was actually a deliberate choice to counter a lot of the Blastoise safe swaps because you could absorb all the water energy. Ice doesn't do anything, of course, and then Skull Bash, you do not want to throw that into a Jellicent. So I thought that was a very interesting pick. Bringing a ghost type as well in a Furret meta is always tricky, but I mean, if you look at Aureo or if you look at Inadequanec, I think that it can still be done, right? So I'm curious your thoughts on the team because we have the Latin American bird in Galarian Moltres, but we also have what I consider a very EU centric pick in that Charjabug.
Well, I actually looked at the the Pokemon that I used recently, and I will say that I'm probably the biggest Charjabug believer out there because it featured on like 4 out of my last 5 teams.
Mm.
So big Charjabug fan over here. Um, and what it does, this makes me think of the line that Oreo brought with Credilli, Shadow Kanto Marowak, Charjabug, Galarian Moltres, Shadow Steelix, and Jellicent. This makes me think of like a September, early October type of team, even though it won a gold medal in the middle of November, because
Agreed.
I thought that with Lille, with Gdansk, the meta moved a little further towards Unova Stunfisk, Altaria, Empoleon, Pokemon that we don't see on this team.
Mhm.
Whereas earlier in the meta, Charjabug was really instrumental in keeping the Galarian Moltres and Scizor core at bay, because it's very difficult to break this dark and steel type combination. And
Mhm.
Charjabug does it excellently because obviously you have the electric coverage against Galarian Moltres, but you also have the like the defensive the defensive property of resisting bullet punches, which is
Mm.
super crucial to stop a Shadow Scissor from wreaking havoc.
Yes.
And also, Charjabug is like I personally feel as if it's the most neutral electric type. It may not be
Yes.
the most potent because when Stunfisk has seen more play and success overall, but with its secondary typing of Bug, it has play against the ground types out there, and it's an extra fighting resist, which is important if your flying type is a Galarian Moltres, you're all of a sudden not that good with your flying type into say a Primate, and we've seen Primate win a championship the same weekend. So
Mhm.
very important to have like just the roll compression that Charjabug offers. And yeah, LNDsAureo, honestly, out of the top three, the only name I would have recognized ahead of the event because
Yeah.
the Argentinian locals came through in kind of a big way, with the big map taking third place and Nix96 taking second place. And I did make some notes on those trainers, and their previous best finishes were the big map tying for 33rd in Santiago, as well as placing amongst the top 500 on the GBL leaderboard before, whereas Nix96 didn't even have a leaderboard placement and came 25th in Buenos Aires the year before. So
Correct.
going from essentially no Dracoviz record to medaling to even making a grand finals in the case of Nix 96, that is a lot of progress in 1 year. And I always enjoy when a regional isn't just a showcase of the dozen of trainers that like fights for travel awards, travels to all the events, and takes top cut in essentially every tournament they play in. But also when a tournament can be a showcase of trainers that we don't see as often, or maybe have never seen before. And this typically happens in smaller events more often than in bigger ones. And with 48 trainers competing, I feel like Buenos Aires was a chance that needed to be taken, and the big map in X96 took that chance.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's always interesting, right? Especially when you look at LATAM countries, which are these days typically dominated by trainers like Marto Galde or LNDS Harjef. I actually checked the bracket to see if Harjef was competing in Buenos Aires, and no, he was not there. Otherwise, I think we would have seen him in the top cut. But seeing your local trainers rise up and do really well is always something that you want, especially if it's a tournament in your region. I was looking at the group stage here, and the Big Mev actually took down Kanan in round 3, and then took down Lean Bernal in the group finals for Group A. So definitely some quality wins against names that we recognize. Speaking of names, we also recognize in fourth place Zardi. We had Memi also finishing top 8, as well as Marto Galde and LNDS Corlash. So very, very strong trainers across the board. while we were talking about the team compositions as well, I was noticing that Charjabug has probably two positive matchups on just about every single team that you look at, whether it's the electric typing or the bug typing. But it also has such a solid advantage over Pokemon like Cradily due to pacing, right? Because it's 3 volt switches and then 2 if you want your X scissors. And granted, you do not want to take a Rock Tomb; it does hurt quite a bit. But I do think there's a lot of utility there. So this is going to be a recurring theme that we talk about in this episode. Not so much at LAIC for obvious reasons, but for the other tournaments, we're going to talk about these standout Pokemon that really kind of core break things, shake things up. And with our Open Great League meta being the way that it was at the end of last season and starting into this season, it really feels like not a lot has changed. And sometimes you do need something really spicy, something really innovative to shake up the formula, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel like with LNDsAureo, the big standout to me on this team, just from a like if we measure it on the Scoville scale, if we take the spice meter, I feel as if Jellicent is probably the standout, and I
Yeah.
see what it does because we don't really have a like an incinerate resist without it, so we would be vulnerable to a Shadow Talonflame sweep potentially. Whereas if we have the water ghost type rather than a regular ghost type, such as potentially Galarian Corsola, that's also a big bonus in terms of utility. But yeah, I did rewatch the grand finals between LNDsAureo and X96. Oreo actually resetting the bracket coming from the loser side. Um, and taking the crown with a pretty dominant display, actually. And that was in part helped by the fact that his Credilli is essentially without a check on Nyx's team. So he always had that as a fallback option. He essentially played a lot of Moltres Credilli core
Mhm.
and then just executed really cleanly. There was also like one game where Oreo used his Charjabug to dispose of a Credilli because he tried to initially make a catch of Corviknight energy against Nyx. He failed that catch because Nyx was very patient, but that patience then allowed the Charjabug to get a full Volt Switch ahead on energy. And because the first X-Scissor landed, in the two shield scenario, that would then be not only the Charjabug outpacing, but also two-shotting the Credilli because it landed the damage undebuffed.
Mhm.
And yeah, that was pretty impressive Charjabug showcase, actually taking out the Rock type and ultimately delivering LNDsAureo his first gold medal. Also, streams on Twitch, check him out. Not only one of the very talented Lindos trainers, but also a talented content creator.
Yeah, absolutely, and caster as well. He has casted a few events for the championship series. If you speak Portuguese, which I don't believe you or I do, ZZ, but if you are a Portuguese speaker, definitely a very talented commentator. You mentioned the grand finals kind of briefly. Of course, we don't have all the footage from the tournament because it wasn't streamed, and I'll admit, right now that I didn't actually watch the grand finals battles. So I'm so glad that you did. We always do that, right? We always cover each other's bases pretty well. But I did want to make kind of one last note about this top cut. You joked about well, you didn't really joke. You just mentioned a Talonflame sweep. Look at Marto Galde's team here. Shadow Altaria, Wigglytuff, Gastrodon, Shadow Scizor, Shadow Steelix, and Shadow Annihilate. Right, so you're either in some kind of like war of attrition with your Thunderfang Shadow Steelix, or you've got your Altaria and you're trying to win the twos. But outside of that, Mans did not have a single answer for Shadow Talonflame. So I don't know. That's not like really pertinent, right? But I think that after you saw what Doonebug did in Las Vegas and you saw what Inadequanec did in Stuttgart, you have to be ready for Shadow Talonflame, especially going to Toronto and the rest of this season.
100%. And also, like one thing that I want to point out now that you mentioned Mark Galde's Shadow Altaria. Shadow
Mm-hmm.
Altaria is a Pokemon that we will see a little more often still when we look at the Vegas bracket. And I believe that the main reasoning behind using the Shadow is the prevalence of Unova and Stunfisk, because regular Altaria only does 2 damage per Dragon Breath against the Unova and Stunfisk, unless you go out of your way to choose an attack weight to make something crazy happen.
Mm-hmm.
But where regular Altaria loses all even shields and even has a chance to lose up a shield, Shadow Altaria actually takes the zeros and forces swap in the twos. So you have a lot more agency in that matchup if you run the Shadow, and with how prevalent Unova and Stunfisk ended up being, I can see why a lot of more seasoned players opted for the Shadow Altaria.
I'm over here taking notes because that was honestly kind of a mystery to me. I've heard trainers like Pocket and some others, kind of commentate on which version of Altaria they think is better. I know that there were some specific matchups involved, but I wasn't aware of that particular one with the Sunfist. So that's actually really good to know,
Yeah.
because if the recent tournaments are any indication, we're going to be seeing a lot more Stunfisk, a lot more Altaria, a lot more Scizor, a lot more Furret. In spite of the Precious Path season coming around, there really have been minimal changes, I would argue, to the overall meta. So you got to
Yeah.
be ready for those matchups.
There have been a lot of changes, but the changes that have been made unusable Pokemon usable
Mm,
rather than that they would really shake up the meta in any too significant way.
that's a good point.
So yeah, but we shall get to that eventually. I feel like it may already be Vegas time.
Yeah, I think so. Again, with kind of a lack of a stream, there's not as much that we can cover with this, but congratulations, really. A warm congratulations to LNDsAureo for taking his first gold medal. He said he told his chat that he was going to win a tournament this season, and boom, it happened almost immediately when he entered uh, in Buenos Aires. Hey, manifestation, right? There's a whole book on it called The Secret, right? You got to check that out. Just kidding, halfway, kind of not kidding. But anyways, that was an incredible tournament for Aureo. A very good season for Zardy as well, finishing fourth place. I'm excited to see what he does going forward. Speaking of going forward, let's hop over over the continent north to Las Vegas. This was the first regional championship in Las Vegas that I have memory of, maybe the first one ever. And it was incredible, ZZ. It was so much fun to go out to Vegas. What they say about the prices are true. The incredible price to book an Uber, to buy a meal, to buy some clothes. It's insane over in Vegas. But we also had some really high level competition.
Well, yeah, just win a tournament and the prices will feel a lot less significant.
Dinners on
And well,
Doonebug. That's what I heard.
yeah. And yeah, like who else would win a tournament that probably, I don't know whether this is the largest regional level championship we ever had, but it's certainly up there with 216 competitors. And not only have the best of North America made their way to Las Vegas, but also the world champion Beelzeboy returned to the United States to, I think, run Melmetal or something. I don't know whether he was like super competitive about it. He obviously, as the defending champion, has his world's invite locked in already. But I guess he just wanted to have some fun. And like honestly, kudos to the Play Pokemon circuit to host a lot of regionals in cities that are a little more alluring than Peoria, Illinois.
That
Because
Peoria is like the punching bag. We all
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
whenever you
it's
say
like
something's awful, you're like, oh, Peoria. That's the one.
it's like famous for being boring in a way. Like I've never even been there. Like my boring NA regional experience is Hartford, Connecticut. Like that is a ghost
Yes.
town. And like a couple months
Yeah.
after I went there, I got a YouTube recommendation of a video that was essentially like about great American cities that decayed in recent decades. And it was like a million views about the fall of Hartford, Connecticut, and
Oh,
honestly, there's truth to that. Tournament
yes.
was fun though. Like sometimes it's about the people and not necessarily about the destination, but great if you
Yeah.
have both, right? And
Right.
Vegas probably had both because it attracted a crowd.
I have a very funny story, kind of outside of the venue, right? Because to your point, you can go inside the venue, have the best time, but then when you walk outside and you're like, oh, what are we gonna have for dinner? What are we gonna do? The question arises, right? Especially if you're in a Hartford or Peoria. But I have a really funny anecdote. I've only told one other person this, right? So this is a Show Six podcast exclusive. So it was Friday night before the tournament. I was walking across a crosswalk to go meet Amanda Lundberg, one of our casters. We were going to talk about the commentary for the weekend, what we wanted to do, that kind of thing. So I'm crossing this crosswalk, middle of the night. It's probably like, I don't know, 8 o'clock or so, and I just choose to walk across this particular path, and I see somebody coming from the opposite direction coming towards me. I'm kind of, oh, looks like a guy. He looks pretty tall, actually. Uh, do I know this person right? Sometimes when you're at a Pokemon event, you might say, oh, well, that's Cyrus, or that's Jingles, or whoever, whatever friend coming towards me. I notice it's Beezle Boy. Just like two ships passing in the night. I had no idea that he was going to be out here. No idea. I guess he was going back to his hotel. But I saw him, and as soon as I realized it, I said, "Oh my God, it's Beezle Boy! It's the world champ!" And I shook his hand, and we both just kept on walking. And he said, "Oh hi," and we just kept walking. And that
I
was
love
it.
how that's the entire interaction.
That was it. Because
And I
because
also want to I also want to think like my headcanon is that this happens to Beelzebub like 7 times a day, and this is just like one of the interactions.
yeah, no, seriously, because we met at like the middle of the crosswalk, and there were 3 lanes of traffic. So if we would have stopped to talk, we would have been run over, right? If we would have done that. So we just said hi and then passed, and then saw him the next day for the event. So yeah, that was a really cool little moment. And you always wonder, like, who am I going to bump into when I'm at one of these
This is
events?
honestly like the vibe that you get a lot at internationals or worlds level
Yes.
events where like worlds collide, where like you expect like to see somebody such as Doonebug or rise to occasion at one of these events in North America, right? Because there are so many of these, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden you have Beelzebub from India. Maybe at Worlds or an international, you all of a sudden bump into Rajef, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this is like a little micro celebrity from my bubble that I didn't quite expect, and also like kind of a friend acquaintance ish type of person. Let's just say hi. Let's just shake
Yeah.
hands, talk about the game or about life for a little bit, and then just go our ways and randomly bump into each other again in this place that is also kind of a touristy destination and just overall a very fun serendipitous time.
Yeah, there's always this big difference, right? When you're in a convention hall around a ton of people, you're like, oh well, I see Elam over there on that side, or I'm looking over here. Oh, Colin standing over there talking with his group. It's always different, that setting, compared to actually just having like a one-on-one, just random. You bump into each other in line waiting for food, or you bump into each other when you're walking on the street. It's definitely a very very different feeling, but a very warm one, I would say. But ZZ was not joking. It looks like Beelzebub Boy did bring Melmetal to Las Vegas, which is an incredible thing. Melmetal, Gastrodon, Furret, Cradilly, a Best Buddy, Galarian Corsola, and an Altaria. But as we know, being the world champion, he's already qualified for next year, so he's just messing around.
Yeah. He has the license to run metal in one of these.
Yeah, he can run whatever the hell he wants, right? He's the world champ. But sorry to get us sidetracked there. Let's go ahead and talk about our top cut, our meta, some things that surprised us, some things that kind of stood out. I do think that Sceptile piloting his trusty Feraligatr to a top 8 finish is always noteworthy. That's always impressive. Firestar with Shadow Mighty Yena, which I thought was really cool. Then we had Trent playing Fortress. I got to shout out Fortress, as well as Puffle Guy playing that bug and steel type. Rise to Occasion, Shadow Dust Noir, and then Rockhaven in third place with Bastiodon. Did I take all the good ones, or is there any other teams you want
There's
to point out?
honestly like so many good ones in there. Like the whole Rockhaven storyline was really fun because the two previous tournaments in North America were won by a Bastiodon. So at the end, you only had Rice and Doonebug left, which is always a storyline because those
Mm-hmm.
are just the rivals of the play Pokemon scene. And then you still had Rockhaven, who not only is called Rock, but he also was famously bringing Carbing to one of his very first
Yes.
regionals, where he like also made at least a top 8 finish, and now
Mm-hmm.
he's back at it with a very polarizing but also very potent pick, and partnering it with Gudra, which is essentially the opposite. Super flexible, doesn't win anything hard, but just gives you that like that maneuverability in and out of matchups
Mm-hmm.
that Basti doesn't really have as much. Um, so that was really fun to follow along, like rooting for that anti-hero making it all the way. I want to stress that Puffle Guy, I think that was Puffle Guy's first tournament,
Mm-hmm.
immediately making it to day 2. And the Quagsire, the Shadow Quagsire that we see on the team, I think it ran Water Gun, which is
It
also
did.
something that we see sometimes as a tech in like a GBL themed cup, but
Yeah.
not really on the regional stage ever. And top cutting with that, about as impressive as Enhoff with her Shadow Auroras, which also made top 16, and certainly bolstered Hoff's hopes of qualifying yet again for the World Championships this year.
It's really funny because if you go to PV Poke and you put in, the core four that we keep talking about, the Altaria, the Unova Stunfisk, the Scizor, my mind is blinking on the fourth one, Furret.
Current?
Yeah, if you put those four into the to the simulator and you look for across the Open Great League what some of the best counters are, Auroras actually does come up, beating 3 out of 4. Of course, losing badly to Scizor. It comes up with a similar performance to something like Alola Ninetales. So to see Anna bring this Shadow Auroras was really really cool, and I do think she connected a couple of Meteor Beams as well, which is always super satisfying.
100%. This is just so fun to like see the little dino on the graphic. Like you always, this is like half of why I really enjoy bringing spies to tournaments. How
Mm,
does the Dracovish sprite look? Because like you don't know until you have the Pokemon on there,
it's
and there
true.
it is. So yeah, always big shout outs to everybody who dares to bring the unusual stuff to these events. And yeah, probably onto something with the ice types, as we will see later on in Stuttgart. But before that is going to be on the menu, I feel like there's still a lot of Vegas to cover because
Yeah,
this is Dune versus Rise, the 12th edition, kind of, sort of. I
correct.
alluded to it in the intro, but we do have a tweet from Rise to Occasion who
Mm,
claims that now it's 6-6 between the two. I don't know whether that just means encounters at a tournament or like sets of like either best of threes, best of fives, or
mhm.
so like the exact metric escapes me right now, but these two have been added so many times and given their respective profiles, typically in high stakes situations as well, like a grand
Yeah,
final, for example.
exactly. I think was it I'm trying to remember if it was Arlington or if it was San Antonio, one of the Texas tournaments. We kind of, as casters, we dubbed it the Tangle in Texas, and we're trying to think of more fun names to call these different clashes. I don't know if we have one yet for Las Vegas, but maybe we'll think of one. But
Let me
Rise
check.
actually, sorry, go ahead.
Let me check whether I have something in my notes. I know that I thought about
Okay,
it. I don't know whether I came up with something. I may have just blanked on it. I
the
probably
the
blanked on it.
rundown
There's a lot of
the rundown roulette. I don't know. Um, no, but Rise actually messaged me actually probably just 10 minutes ago now. He says that 6-6 is correct. He says one more interesting thing that we can talk about is that Dune and I have each won a grand finals against each other now. I've beaten Dune twice en route to a championship, and he's beaten me 3 times en route to a championship. So we I joked with Marto and Harjef about when those two face in Latam, whoever wins that series tends to win the whole tournament, and they've actually like taken turns going back and forth doing this. And it seems like Rise and Dune are almost like similar, right? If they get past each other, then it's almost like a clear runway to gold.
I wonder whether we should. Okay, this is just like me spitballing here,
All
but
right.
what if we had like a doubles type of tournament? I know there have been grassroots events like that. I know like Martine and Inadequanec once hosted the Muddy Cup. The Muddy Cup was themed around Quagsire and Clodsire, and one player had to run a Quagsire team, the other had to run a Clodsire team,
I love that.
and this was like a 2-on-2. And I wonder like if we had that as like a grassroots tournament, who would be the most potent teams of two? I feel like Rise
Ooh.
and Dune, if they decided to team up and join forces, just about the scariest sight to see if you're in a bracket wondering who to go up against next. Like
Yeah.
those
They
two,
would be
I don't know how
insane.
many medals they have between each other.
Yeah, I could see. I don't know. We can think of some other fun duos, and maybe we should like host this tournament and recruit folks. What about like Colin and Emmy Weedle as a pair? That
Oh,
would be
that's like a
insane.
tea and pizza type of pairing. I see it. I
Exactly.
see the vision.
Or we could do Pato and Palasha. That would be insane too as a duo.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know.
Oh yeah. If it's like a national team type of deal,
Ooh,
that could also be like everybody is like wondering who the best Dutch battler is. Maybe not so much anymore after this past tournament, but like if we had like a Colin and Adequance pairing, that would be pretty strong.
oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. All right, we might be cooking here, everybody. Sorry to get off track, but yeah, I agree. The Dune and Rise rivalry goes all the way back to 2022 when everyone was still wearing masks and we were still coming out of the pandemic. This is going to be a thing as long as the both of those traders are competing. So I can't wait to see what happens next. But I will say in the grand finals, well, excuse me, let's take one step back. Rise actually sent Doonebug down to the loser side bracket in the winners finals, beating him 3-1. Doonebug then had to overcome his opponent Rockhaven, which he did in a nail biter of a game number 5 before ascending into the grand finals. Now, what I found interesting about this grand finals was on paper, it looks like Dune just has an incredible team comp advantage. And I think that he kind of figured this out over time. It was obviously not gradual. Having lost the first set, grand finals, he only won game number 5 to seal it. But then in the grand finals reset, Doonebug actually won 3-0. So I don't know if you've shared the same sentiment, but I actually heard a rumor that Rise after the tournament said that he was just happy to play it as close as he did because he did feel that the team comp disadvantage was that massive.
I think like one thing that makes it really difficult for Ice is just that Shadow Primate.
Yeah.
I'm honestly like super happy. Like I didn't really have a horse in the race between Dune and Rice. I respect both of them a lot, and I was just like rooting for a good show. But I was kind of happy to see Primate win because Primate would have been my meta call for that weekend, specifically because it's a fighting type that can beat flying types. And I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking Ice Punch for the Altarias, and Dune actually did face quite a lot of Altarias and disposed of them pretty handily on his way to the grand finals. But a flyer that Primeape is even stronger against than against an Altaria is the Sucker Punching Galarian Moltres on Rise's team. So the Galarian Moltres didn't come out at all in the grand finals, and that
Yeah.
just gave Dune so much freedom for his own Galarian Corsola to roam free, for his Shadow Talonflame to roam free, and like the pressure that came from that Primate, and also the Primate was very bringable. The only real answers, like quote unquote answers, were Florges and
Fortress.
like maybe if you play the fast move game with Shadow
Dusknoir.
Dusknoir or Gastrodon, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not like, oh, I have this dominant counter swap that really scares the Primeape away. Like that's just not really the case, especially with how volatile a Florges can be against a team that features like a Credilli that may feasibly come, a Shadow Talonflame that obviously you now have Chilling Water for it, but still you don't really love to be in that matchup as much.
Yeah.
Um, and just like not as convincing in neutral situations either. So I see how Rice felt as if he was a little bit on the back foot because without that Moltres, the Galarian Corsola was just really a big problem and just so safe for June. But one thing that I will say about the team that Rice brought to this encounter is that Gastrodon was kind of like a wedge that he could bring into essentially every situation as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only true answer to Gastron on June's team would be the Credilli, but that may just be an answer in theory because it is very bait dependent if you
Yeah.
counter swap the Credilli. Like if you're not on even energy immediately, you will be pressed to either get a grass knot through a shield or successfully bait with the rock tomb and lower the Gastron's attack. Otherwise, one water pulse will be enough to essentially have the Credillion slap down range.
Yeah.
And that is not where you want to be necessarily. So there was some neutrality to be had. I don't think these were RPS grand finals by any means, because both trainers essentially had this neutral Pokemon, may it be the Galarian Corsola, which was just really well protected and therefore didn't really have to fear the Moltres, or the Gastrodon, which only really had the Credilli to quote unquote fear, but I don't even believe the Credilli came from Dune's side. So
Mm-hmm.
really a lot of neutral, a lot of like like unpredictable matchups, I want to say, because you rarely ever knew what was going to happen based on the lead matchup alone, which was pretty enjoyable to see as a spectator.
I remember commentating that with Amanda, and I just kept on asking, like, when is Rise going to make that really risky call? When is he going to just send out that Galarian Corsola, capture that, excuse me, send out the Galarian Moltres to capture the Galarian Corsola, and then just try to RPS, right? Just try to just grind out a win however he can, because you could feel it, right, in the venue on stage. You could feel his momentum kind of slipping away from him. Doonebug winning the first two games, Rise evening the series with two wins, and then falling in that game five of the grand finals was tough. You're exactly right, because when you look at the teams here from Doonebug, he played a lot of Wigglytuff, a lot of Galarian Corsa, a lot of Shadow Primeape, and Unova Stunfisk. And then occasionally the Shadow Talonflame. He brought the Talonflame out in games 3, 4, and 5 of the grand finals, and he also brought it out in game 1 of the reset. But there's not a single instance of Cradily. And I think a big reason for that is because Rise did have Dynamic Punch Shadow Dusknoir. He did have Empoleon, and he did have, like you said, that matchup with the Gastron is not always clean. And then your Florges even is not awful either. So Rice did play Florges. I think he played it one time and lost that game. That was game number 2 in the grand finals. So tough sledding for Rice. And you would think that after coming that close to a win, having all this pressure on his shoulders, right? Everyone else in the room is saying, "Oh, is Rice going to keep his streak alive? Is he going to win another event? Is he going to continue his run? Uh, does that mean that he's not the same player he was if he doesn't win?" Everyone in the room is saying that, and then you talk to Rise off camera after the series, after the grand finals, and he says, "Yeah, man, I was actually pretty happy. I'm just glad that I kept it close. I had a pretty tough team comp, and Dune's really good, so I'm glad that it was a good series and that we had fun." Which,
Yeah, Rice also just strikes me as a pretty introspective dude, and I'm pretty sure he's very well aware of how much of a privilege the so-called pressure to keep the streak alive is, because he's the only person to be able to keep such a streak alive. He's the only person to have won a championship in every single season. And that
yeah,
alone, like, that just should fill you with so much confidence that, like, you've already cemented your place in history because nobody matched your feat. If it
mm-hmm.
ends, it ends. Still a great tournament. And also, you're like the season isn't even half over, and you've already
Exactly.
reached a grand final in a 216 people tournament. That just should have you very confident for what's yet to come in this season. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether this tournament really saw like a winner and a loser rather than a bunch of winners, honestly, because
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just like one of the best shows I've seen in like a play Pokemon tournament like this, because it was close, right? It was not one sided. It had a
Yeah,
record reset after already being like a grudge match. And I want to ask you one question that's like a little less, like a little more granular, but also
sure.
not really factual, but a little more emotional. In the very
Okay.
first game of the grand finals, Dune makes two decisions. He plays out the zeros with his weekly tough against Rise's Gastrodon,
Mm-hmm.
survives on 1 HP, comes out with an Icy Wind.
Mm-hmm.
Later, he lets a Shadow Punch from Shadow Dusknoir on his Galarian Corsola Go and survives on 1 HP.
Yeah.
Do you think Dune knew this for a fact? Or do you think Dune just has a sixth sense for damage ranges and just figured that that was what's going to happen?
Is there a way to just say both? Right? To say that both things can be simultaneously true, right? So
Yeah, I think both of this can be true, but what informed these decisions?
yeah, so I know that Rise and Dune are not on the same grassroots team, and I don't know how often they actually scrim against each other. I'm sure they do occasionally, but I don't know if they scrim to the degree that they would know each other's individual Pokemon damage calculations to that level. So I'm gonna go with the option that Doonebug just has a sixth sense for damage calcs. He just is a freak of nature in that way. One of my favorite facts about Doonebug, and I think I've said this once or twice before, is that you can ask him any combination of moves, and he will just tell you immediately what the energy cost would be. He would say, for example, you say how many psi waves to Giga Impact, and he would immediately be able to tell you. Right, this is a trainer who can kind of see through the matrix like Neo, and I think that he thinks of damage calculations in the same way. Whereas a lot of us would just go through the motions with our Go Battle League battles and say, oh, well, that did a lot of damage. Oh, I lost this game. Oh, I won this game. He's like recording everything. Record button is always turned on when it comes to Doonebug's brain. And I do think that those two 1 HP survives. I have those noted as well. And I think he does another 1 HP survive later on in the series to just kind of cement
I
that
think
this
he
was not a
repeats the
one-off.
Gastro Wigglytuff matchup,
Yes,
and it just plays
yes.
out the same way.
Exactly. So it proves that not only did he make the calculation and that he knew he would survive it, but he doubles down and he just does it the same way again. And having the confidence, right, to just go ahead and play it out the same way and not deviate from your strategy, I think is really important. So yeah, I would say my answer is Doonebug is a robot. He knows the damage calculations, he knows the counts, and he had no fear at all because robots don't feel fear.
Introducing the Doonbot, now with
Doonebot,
new and improved
Doonebot
damage
97.
calculations. Um,
Exactly.
so my personal theory is that Dune simped this matchup,
Mm,
like not necessarily the matchup against Rise's team, but against some common Pokemon that he may encounter, maybe even between day one and day two. Um, and then knew exactly like how many astonishes plus a shadow punch can I survive to still get my
mm,
move off? How can I play out the Gastron matchup with my Wigglytuff? Like how many moves can I take and still come out with an attack without having to throw it? I feel as if the way he nodded when those 1 HP survives happened, that made me feel as if he had planned that, as if that was not just like a happy coincidence that he willed into existence by virtue of being Doonebug. I think
mm.
this man knows while being a magician, but like those were certainly moments that stood out from that series. Just like my notes say, Dune's super strength match up knowledge because you need to know what your Pokemon can do. Sometimes you even choose your individual values based on what you want your Pokemon to do. Maybe you need a little more HP, maybe you need a little more defense, maybe you need a little more attack. Yeah, it can swing anyway. Sometimes also depends on the values of your opponent's Pokemon. He probably didn't know
Yes.
the exact values of Rises, um, but yeah, it certainly worked out for him. And yeah, another note that I made for I think it was the decisive game in how this is not RPS at all. Um, oh yeah, that was not actually the decisive game. This was the game that led to the reset.
Mm,
Because the game that led to the reset, game 5 of the initial series, it starts with Rise leading Gastrodon into Unova Stunfisk.
correct.
So you would think, okay, if he just keeps alignment, he probably closes out this series right here. But not only um do we see another instance of Galarian Corsola being super important for Doonebug in that it doesn't really have a clear answer. He, like Rice, can only chip it and go into his Dusknoir, but he has to go down a shield to keep alignment. And that shield advantage is all that Shadow Talonflame in the back needs to sweep this game for Doonebug.
Yep.
Crucially, Dune takes out Rice's Empoleon in the endgame with the Fly after initially having a Flame Charge shielded. And that is so important because even though Empoleon was still at like half health, um, he needed to throw that 45 energy move to then get to his next fly in time to outpace the Gastron that was still alive on Rise's side. If he didn't trust his damage calculation there and threw the neutral flame charge instead of the resisted fly, he would have needed more than the 140 energy that he generated from all the incinerates he did to get to a third attack and probably would have lost the game and the tournament right there. So again, just confidence in your matchup knowledge.
Yep.
And yeah, after that, the reset, a little more one sided, but still a great fight overall.
That's such a good point. I have it in my notes as well. Doonebug throws one Thundershock, then swaps to Galarian Corsola. Rise, his Dustoir lives on 1 HP to get a dynamic punch off against the Unova Stunfisk, and then Dune Shadow Talon sweeps with a Flame Charge Fly combination. So, speaking of 1 HP survives, I have in my notes that Game 5, Rise's Shadow Dustoir lived with 1 HP, and then again in Game 3 of the reset, his 1 HP Dustoir survives after a Nightshade, which allows him to get one more charge attack as well. So there were 1 HP survives on both sides, right? Whether it be Dune or Rise, just a testament to how close these trainers are. But I really appreciate that you pointed that out because you're right. I saw him throw the flame charge, and I was like, man. And Polion, obviously being a steel type, is going to resist the fly, so you need to boost yourself up just a little bit, and he does that, and he's able to close that out with Talon. And after that game 5 of the grand finals, you could really feel that Rise was on the back foot, and kind of no matter what happened next, this felt like Doonebug's tournament to win. So very well played by him. Rise did his best. I do think there were a couple of team comp things that were tough to overcome, but he's an incredible player, and I'm sure that he'll find his way back to another grand finals pretty soon. Like you said, we're not even halfway done with the season. I know that Rise has a bunch of tournaments he's probably planning to attend. And Doonebug, I think he just became, if he wasn't already, he became the all-time winningest competitor in the championship series for Pokemon Go.
I wonder who's second. Would it be like probably like somebody from LATAM, right? Maybe Mato or Rajiv?
Yeah, I think it would have to be. But I think that was his 6th gold medal, if I'm not mistaken.
That is just insane, especially because like I don't know, like there's obviously not a clear hierarchy of difficulty between regions, but I feel as if whenever Dune takes one of those gold medals, it's also like one of the biggest tournaments of all time. Like I
True.
remember Monterey, now Vegas. It always feels like it's just so difficult, but the higher the difficulty, the better the Doonebug, apparently.
Exactly. Second place at EUIC, which was a huge tournament. And I think that even San Antonio, back when he fell to losers in round 2, I think even San Antonio back then was a big tournament. So,
Yeah, I feel like
uh,
only the very best trainers get second place at EOIC.
yes, I would agree. The very best, But yeah, I'm excited to see what Doonebug does next. I'm excited to see what other second place EUIC finishers do next, especially with the whole of next year rolling around here very shortly. But
Oh yeah.
Doonebug was wildly impressive. In our top 8, right, we had so many stacked trainers. We can't even talk about the top 16. We had Rockhaven, Out of Pocket, It's Accent, Set Lice, Ash Nash, and NiteTimeClasher to round out our top 8. And if anything, that 8th place finish by NiteTimeClasher is almost like a prelude to what is to come next for him. Then
Yeah,
we had,
like honestly, the entire fifth to eighth bracket
mhm,
from Vegas, I feel as if Sceptilize and Ash Nash, those are like the two names that would feel like next in line for a big win.
yeah,
Whereas with Axon, we had the storyline from him having like won everything, a tough 1.5 years, and now finally achieving top level consistency again. And then all the way at the bottom of the graphic from fifth to eighth, NiteTimeClasher just lurking, just watching and waiting for his moment.
yeah, which actually did come pretty soon after this one. So I'm
Just a
really
week
excited.
after, in fact.
Just a week, right? And in a different meta too, which is also really important to point
Yeah.
out. Um, I don't know if there's much else that we should add to Vegas. I'm really happy with how the tournament went. I know we had some technical issues towards the end of the tournament, but I'm glad we got those sorted out. I'm glad we got a champion in Doonebug, and yeah, it was great. I hope we go back to Vegas, even
Yeah,
though it was expensive. I hope we go back.
it certainly appeared to be a fan favorite location, and yeah, certainly congratulations to all the trainers for their incredible results. And now the question would be, do we move on to Sao Paulo or do we move on to Stuttgart to close out the regional level competitions first?
Mm. One more thing I'll say before we move on from Vegas. I almost forgot. Before I went to Vegas to commentate, you and I talked about Primeape being a potential core breaker. and I did include it on my caster predictions, and I
Oh.
did verbally credit you as well for giving me the idea.
I do appreciate that.
I guess we worked together on the idea because we both kind of arrived at the same conclusion independently, but I trust your opinion more as a competitor than my own. So yeah, I absolutely had to give you your flowers there because Shadow Primate was impressive. How about we do this? How about we stay on the Shadow Talonflame train and we go to Stuttgart and we talk about a trainer who played it even better than Doonebug did?
Yeah, let's do it. And that trainer is no other than Team Galactic boss Cyrus, apparently. I saw a
Correct.
tweet and I didn't recognize the guy from our championship circuit at first, but I think he played a pretty significant role in the Sinnoh game. So yeah,
Agreed.
that guy took first place, I think.
I actually, so I'm going to scroll here while I talk. I actually want to see how many likes that post is up to because I thought it was something like 20,000 or 30,000 likes
The
on that
likes
one
are one thing.
post.
I want to see the impressions because we
Uh,
may be past 2 million at this point.
oh, goodness. Okay. I like a lot of things on X, formerly known as Twitter. So I'm trying to find this. But yeah,
Okay, let's give
so
it a plus. Oh, 1.7 million views.
oh, you
Okay.
found it? Okay, perfect.
And 5.6 thousand likes. But maybe there's like a quote tweet that's even more like liked more than the original Play Pokemon. Yeah, I think the most liked tweet is actually a quote tweet, whereas
Yes.
the impressions count for the original tweet as well as all the quote tweets.
Oh, yeah, here we go. This is another good one. This is a quote tweet from trying to think of how to say this, or just lakes underscore nebula. It's not a big account, right? Only 822 followers. Um, they're a TCG player, and they quote tweeted Play Pokemon and said in all caps, "Did this MFer come dressed as Cyrus and then win?" with four question marks. 48,000 likes, almost 2,000 bookmarks, almost 4,000 retweets,
Yeah.
and looks like it has almost a million impressions.
Pokemon Go hasn't gone this viral since 2016. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
But
to
yeah,
to
you go
to
ahead.
I was just gonna say, to your point, this is super important that Pokemon Go is elevated more to a stage akin to TCG or VG, and that more people take note of the game. And I think that something like this that Martine did, cosplaying as Cyrus, just it breaks the fourth wall. It breaks a lot of those barriers, and it puts Pokemon Go on the map for a lot of people that probably aren't even aware that we have a championship series. So this is really
Yeah.
huge for us as a community, and of course, a really big deal for Martine.
It is much better if the TCG and VG and just general Pokemon fans see Pokemon Go as a competitive game in which stuff like this happens, rather than this one meme where the grandmas tap the screen in the casino. Because I have seen that way too many times when people who didn't know the game talked about the game, and now
Yeah,
they will just think about the Giratina guy who came dressed as Cyrus. And I think that is a big step up, and I am thankful to Martine for that.
yeah, that's a huge upgrade. I think I saw a screenshot of the message. I forget who he was talking to, but he said, "If I make day two, I'm going to cosplay as Cyrus again." And they were like, "Okay, bet." And turns out it worked out, right? But what incredible run by him. I do want to spend a little time on the top cut before we get into grand finals. This feels like PvP David's meta, and we're all just living in it, right? There's a lot of Stunfisk, a lot of Furret, a lot of Shadow Scizor, and then you have Stone Collection who plays Belly Bolt. So there's that.
Honestly, the jump left is almost more crazy after the aerial ace nerf, but
True. True. Very talented trainers here in our top cut, including Cashton FR, who basically has, I think that is PvP David's team, if I'm not mistaken. It might just
yeah,
have one piece
I
different.
think it is exactly the team.
Yeah, you got Zephy Mastix bringing the Latam Galarian Moltres. You've got Cookshack playing Zweilous, which I know that you're definitely a fan of. Frika with Spidops and Shadow Charizard. Seeing that on stream was really cool. But I wanted to let you talk about Udin's team because this one I thought was super interesting.
It is double Fox. Like obviously it has some staples like when Stunfisk, Gastron, Galarian Corsola, Shadow Talonflame. But behind that pretty mundane exterior, two foxes lie, and one of them is the Icy Fox that actually ended up taking the entire tournament in the hands of Inadequance,
Mhm.
and that is Alolan Ninetales. But the other fox is one that is very near and dear to my heart because I was a big Thivo believer, even ahead of the Vegas weekend. What
Yes.
Thivo does is it is a sucker puncher with a fairly comparable stat product to a Pokemon like Furret. So a little bit middle of the pack, but certainly can tank a hit. It has the 10 turn pacing that is so coveted. Not too swift like with Furret, but
Mhm.
to Night Slash instead. And then it has Play Rough for coverage, which occasionally comes up but isn't as important. And what the Seawool does that Furret doesn't really do is, first of all, it wins the head to head between Furret and Seawool, those Pokemon that are fairly similar. The one that has Stab on his own Sucker Punches and resists the opposing Sucker Punches will come out ahead. And then
Exactly.
it also has like an even better Shadow Scizor matchup because you would resist the Night Slashes, they have to go for Trailblazers. Again, you also always benefit from that extra stab. You have a way better Corviknight matchup actually,
Mhm.
because you actually can throw neutral charge attacks at it rather than resisted ones. And overall, it's just so funny if the boost pops off because it's pretty cheap to get to, and
Yeah.
once you have two stage boosted stab sucker punches, that kind of goes wild. So yeah, that was a very interesting choice, and we did see Odin play both foxes quite a lot actually.
Mhm.
And I know that he team built together with Martine, which is why we see some similarities on the teams, even though they're still pretty distinct and have their own character. But I feel like the Alolan Ninetales was kind of the Martine read of the meta that then
Yes.
also helped the other Fox on Odin's team shine a little more. Because, yeah, this was the Alolan Ninetales show specifically because of the PvP David team.
Yes.
You have the Unova Stunfisk, which absolutely doesn't want to see Alolan Ninetales. You have Altaria, nightmare matchup, even though you now have Flamethrower, but try and get to that with like weather ball spam from a powder star.
Yeah.
Um, and then you also have Furret. And Furret is like the Pokemon of the hour, kind of. Um, but it has a miserable Ninetales matchup because not only are the Sucker Punches resisted, it also gets outpaced and outblocked. So that's a lot of factors that don't really play in favor of the Furret. Now, Martine is obviously not only one of our best competitors, not only one of our best content creators. Go check out his Stuttgart video.
So
But
good.
he's also very diligent when it comes to like noting down what his Pokemon actually did in that tournament. And he only brought the Shadow Giratina twice, and he only brought the Gastrodon twice. And now I want to ask you, Speedy, why are these two Pokemon not coming out more? I think there's a very clear cut answer, but I want to play the ball back to you for this.
I was taking a timestamp so I could put this graphic into the YouTube version when we upload it. You said Gastrodon, and what was the second Pokemon that didn't show up very much?
Gastrodon and Giratina only appeared twice,
Mm,
whereas like the most used Pokemon was Ninetales, which came out 13 times.
yes.
Shadow Talonflame came out 11 times, and then we have Empoleon with 9 and Furt with 8 times.
Yes. So I will tell you that the Alola Ninetales usage, for all the reasons you just laid out, is such an incredible core breaker for the three of the top four, I would say, of the current meta. Um, Martine told me that his Alola Ninetales, the majority of its KOs was probably against a Furret, right? He was always knocking out Furrets. He knew that matchup inside and out, and he knew that he could bank a Weather Ball. He knew how much to overcharge. He knew that Trailblaze plus Swift was preferable to double Swift, for example. So he knew that matchup inside and out. Now you asked about why Gastrodon and why the Shadow Giratina did not show up. Well, that's because Shadow Giratina, as a whole, is inherently not that good in the current meta. I think there are a lot of threats to
Come
it,
on, you
and
can't
I
say
just
that.
it's
It
true
has won
though.
2 titles already. It must be
Okay,
great. It
okay,
must be amazing.
but if you look at his actual usage for the Giratina, I don't think he played it a single time in the grand finals.
Yeah, I think it only ever came out against Snorlax,
Yes,
and Snorlax's team composition also is part of the answer that I have in my head for why both Giratina and Gastrodon stayed on the bench for the most part. And that answer is Martine's team is incredibly soft to opposing Furret somehow. Like,
yes,
you have Gastron, which gets one shot by Trailblaze essentially, like you survive on a sliver of HP, but you don't want to be in that matchup. Then you have Giratina, obviously, a ghost type against a normal type with Sucker Punch, so not great either. Then you have Shadow Talonflame. You may think it's neutral, but for it actually fairly consistently takes a switch advantage against Shadow Talonflame. Then you have the Mirror. That's not necessarily an answer as much. And then you have Empoleon, which looks better than it actually is because you still kind of just do neutral against each other. And if the Ferrant wants, can kind of boost through you.
yeah,
So the only real Ferret answer is Alolan Ninetales. The entire team is soft to Ferret, and Ferret is just about the most prevalent Pokemon.
yeah.
That tells me that a lot of his opponents were playing Ferret against him, and he had to leave the things that are weak to Ferret on the bench and just play the thing that beats Ferret a lot. So that kind of explains why Alolan Ninetales was the star of the show, because the rest of the six lured the Ferrets in just for the Fox to take them out.
Yeah. Exactly. No, you said it well. I think when you have a team comp like that, a lot of trainers will stress out about covering everything, about having an answer for everything. But some players, like Inadequanec, right? They'll just invite a weakness and they'll say, you know, please bring this Pokemon against me so I can handle it every time. And I think that because team composition is such an important part of Pokemon Go, I would argue team comp and locking in the right trio is more important in Go than any of the other Pokemon titles. When you can start to reduce the variables and you can start to predict that your opponent will select a certain Pokemon or a certain couple of Pokemon every single time, it sends your chances of winning those matchups through the roof as long as they play the way that you expect them to play. And Inadequanec talks about this at length in his video. And you'll notice time and time again, just watching the battles on stream, he'll lead Alola Ninetales into Furret, or he'll lead something, his opponent will swap Furret, and then he brings out the Alola Ninetales. Not only does he know that that Pokemon is coming, but his ability to predict where it's going to be in the line is so good. So if you're listening to this show on a podcast platform, open up YouTube, type in Inadequanec, look at his newest video about his run. It's an absolute clinic on basically how to team read, how to team build. And like he says in the video intro, he went through like 12 iterations. He considered Fortress, he considered Corviknight, he considered a bunch of other Pokemon. But Zizi, I just want to say this. Just want to talk about myself just for a split second here.
Please
I
do.
asked I asked Rise in Las Vegas if he had considered a Pokemon like Alolan Sandslash because I felt like Ice was in such a good place in the current meta, and he said no, which understandably, right? But it made me feel a little validated, right? That I was talking about Ice types, and then Inadequates turns around and plays Alolan Ninetales and wins it all. Made me feel definitely validated. I just had the wrong Ice type.
Also, one thing that I think kind of went under the radar,
Yeah,
we haven't seen this exact scene before, obviously, because nobody else plays Giratina, but we've kind of seen the principle of this team before. Because in Lille, Hikami also had the Talonflame Empoleon Gastro, three very strong options against Scizor, and those three covered back then the Ice type Abomasnow. it wasn't Ninetales, but it was a Pokemon that served a very similar function back then. So I feel as if the winning team from Hikami and the winning team from Martine and Stuttgart, they actually kind of work very similarly
Mhm.
in that they essentially have this one like core of three that is pretty like you can realistically play those three together and it would still be a balanced team. And all of them kind of scare away the Shadow Scizor that then would threaten your other Pokemon that may break some cores. Back then it was the snowman Christmas tree type of creature, and
Mm.
in Stuttgart it was the fox, which obviously has the added bonus of resisting further sucker punches and therefore being uniquely well positioned in this meta.
Yeah, that's right. And with Hikami's team in Lille, he had the Zweilous as his sixth, which is a dragon type. And then you had the Shadow Giratina for Inadequance. So I think it's one of my favorite quotes is that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And I think that's such an important thing to consider. And you and I were talking about players and their matchups over time, and I really wish we had a player database so that we could look for trends like this. We could look for cores, trios, even sets of four that have kind of a rhyme to them, and just kind of think more abstractly about team building and not just, oh, what's good in the moment, what core breaks right now, and then just getting through it. Because I agree with you. I think this team structure is actually quite similar.
I know that for the Candle Cult practice tournaments, there is a little bit of extra data visualization in the works where
Mm.
um, we may want to this is spearheaded by Trip Tando, who does a lot of work behind the scenes of the European streams as well, where we may want to not only show usage but also show the most common cores that people use. So giving people an idea of what works well together. And yeah, obviously there's degrees of cores. Like you can have a two Pokemon core, for example, the Primate Galarian Corsola core, the Doonebug ran in Las Vegas, which only really has like two or three core breakers to it.
Mhm.
Or you can have like a multi Pokemon core with about like three Pokemon that work well together, just like if you look at them in isolation, but they also all protect a fourth Pokemon that will then be enabled. Um, so yeah, certainly some trends that are not as easy to spot, but kind of fun when you think about it, and maybe something that people may bring back for the Precious Path season, just
Mm.
because overall the meta hasn't changed all that much.
Twastel messaged me yesterday and he asked me when you and I were going to release our team building guide that we've talked
Oh
about
yeah.
on and off for like a year.
uh,
I haven't replied to him yet. So if this comes out before I reply to you, Twastel, just know that we're working on it. Working on it. But yeah, so many incredible trainers here in our top cut. One trainer we didn't mention was Tauntaun Batus and his Shadow Dragonair. Love Shadow Dragonair. I'd love to see that Pokemon get a moveset update. I think that'd be cool if it got a little more versatility. Maybe make it like a Hypno of dragons. Give it Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, and Ice Beam. That could be really sick. I don't know if Niantic/Scopely's listening, but let's talk about it. But I think we can move on to grand finals. And it looks like in Stuttgart we had an all Dutch finals, and this seems to be an opportunity for Inadequance to break a 3-year curse, if I may say so, that has been hanging over the Stuttgart regionals.
oh, the tea and pizza curse. I did
The
watch the videos.
the P and T's a curse, as Amanda would say.
Jeez. Oh man, yeah. Like it's been. I think it's been Emmy Weedle. It's been Colin Six, and who was the third champion? I'm blanking right now. Oh, it was
Um,
PvP David last year. Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
David, that's right. My mind
So
was saying Boom 20, but I was like, no, it's not him.
you
I remember they were in the
see even
finals
tea
against
and
each other,
pizza
right?
yet?
Yeah, right. When is that going to happen? But
Emphasis on the yet. Um,
this was a fun grand finals to watch. I do have a few notes on it. It was a swift grand finals, a 3-0. And to me, this just kind of felt like a culmination of Inadequates making all the right team reads, all the right composition choices, but also having a team comp advantage in a lot of ways, I
oh
would
yeah.
say, because Talonflame looked insane versus this team. Spite Ops is really fun, and I think it's really cool that we just got a brand new Pokemon and it already claimed a silver medal at a regional competition. I think that's a really good sign for it. We're going to see a ton of Spite Ups at EUIC, everybody. So if you liked watching Colin play it, just wait. But I'm curious what your read was on the team comp, because to me, this looks like Alola Ninetales, Shadow Talonflame, Go Burr,
Yeah.
and that was
Do
just
you know
it.
the amount of Pokemon on Colin's team that beat both the Alola Ninetales and the Shadow Talonflame?
Zero.
Exactly. There is not a single one that breaks that core. So yeah, actually, like my notes on the grand finals are watch Martine's video because I think just like hearing it from the man himself is infinitely more valuable than me trying to like either paraphrase the video or
Yeah.
give my own thoughts on what his thoughts could have been. Um, but yeah, this certainly does look like a favorable team composition. And well, while I'm at it with shouting out competitors that are also creators, I'm pretty sure that Rise also published a video on his finals run in Vegas. So
Mm.
if you feel so inclined, check that out as well, because it's always best to get the insight from the people that made the decisions in the moment.
Agreed. Inadequanec had an incredible win. After he won that third game against Colin, he immediately stands up, looks at the camera, and strikes the team or the Team Galactic boss Cyrus pose, and just holds it for probably 6 or 7 seconds straight, and just holds the pose. So he knew exactly what he was doing. He
Yes.
he was aura farming on stage like no other. All right, but he deserves it, right? 2 tournament wins. I mean, this really feels like the season of Inadequance. And we'll see if anything changes as we turn the page to the next calendar year. But as of right now, he looks unstoppable.
One thing that gives me personally a lot of confidence is that leading up to the event, Martijn asked me many, many times if I was going, if I was competing, and like sort of with the intention of don't go, I want to win this. I can't have too much capable competition. And to still be at least considered as somebody that could stop him with the form that he's on right now, like that is honestly the biggest compliment I could have received. But yeah, I was never going to go to Stuttgart again. Maybe next year if it's still on the menu, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just like I had originally planned to take the time off for LAIC.
Mm.
That didn't happen because of reasons out of my control, and
Yeah.
yeah, Stuttgart skipped this year, not only for me, apparently for many competitors, because we had only 82 people actually
Yeah.
competing, which is down at least 20 from the heights of Stuttgart. But maybe we can bounce back because at least EUIC, as like the premier event in the region, it sold out at like 512. It's not exactly 512 right now because apparently like there's probably like cancellations and
Sure.
the remaining spots haven't been opened up to the public just yet. But we're going to sell out a 512 person bracket for EUIC. That's kind of incredible, even though like the regional level events are struggling or
Yeah.
so in terms of popularity.
One of my side project ideas is to map attendance at these events, kind of correlate not only region but also time of the year. For example, you wouldn't want to compare Monterey of this season to Monterey of 2025 because they were at completely different times in the year and the attendance numbers were wildly different as well. So that's something I do want to work on, and I do want to see if these concerns of attrition are actually valid. They appear to be, right. If you just look at the numbers plainly, without context, they appear to be very valid. I saw a comment from Inadequance online just morning. Somebody said that EUIC sold out to 512. They're really excited about it, and Inadequance said, well, you have to consider that a lot of top trainers are dropping off, and maybe if they only pick 1 or 2 events a year, they're picking EUIC. So you're kind of getting like this hyper focus on one event. Meanwhile, kind of your roots, right, your other events around the calendar year are kind of withering at the same time. So we're going to see if that comes to fruition, but I'm excited. I was a little concerned, to be honest with you, when we saw LAIC only had like 300, 330 around that ballpark. that felt like maybe we had hit a ceiling. But looking at EUIC, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, yeah. Certainly inspiring some optimism. Like really, that's like up more than 100 from the previous biggest official tournament, which was I think last year's UIC because we tend to do numbers in the UK for some reason. But
Yeah,
yeah, and
it's the gateway to
uh,
Europe.
my only biggest hope is that these aren't just TCG swag pirates who want to enter Go in the hopes of getting a little bit of competitor merch.
Oh
But yeah,
gosh,
we'll see how it goes.
I hope not. Oh, those darn TCG swag pirates every time. But no, I hope not. I wish there was a way to like validate if this person signing up was going to be a competitor. Maybe have them like register a team and just kind of have an admin look at the teams and say, huh, they registered Klefki. I don't think that they're actually a serious player. No, I'm just kidding. Then you get into all kinds of gray area. But I wish there
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a way
yeah.
to
I would
determine.
I would have I would have been excluded from Gdansk with my toucan, I'm pretty sure. So let's not do that.
This guy's got to be screwing around. He's playing Shadow Toucan. Get him out of here, right?
Oh man,
But no,
getting
I
banned under the suspicion of being a TCG player. What an end
yeah,
to a career.
this Z's Wireless is kind of sus. He might be throwing this particular tournament. He might not be serious anymore, but that's could not be farther from the case. But to kind of wrap things up, Stuttgart was incredible. Like, Inadequance, I think in top form, right? If you look across the world at trainers, maybe he's only scared of you and a couple others like Pata Man. But as of right now, Inadequance is in top form. I'm really excited to see what he does on the turn of the year. Colin returning to the grand finals is also a good sign. Europe's best are rising up the ranks as expected. And yeah, speaking of
One shout
Europe's
out that I want
best,
to give
go
is
ahead.
to Snorek, who came in fifth, and
Uh-huh.
that is because I believe that is a trainer who, like, he and Martine had a little bit of a controversial history, and now this is the second year in a row that Martine denied him a medal, essentially, because both this year and last year they faced in Stuttgart. But overall, I feel as if Snorek has come a long way, and with the form that he's been displaying recently, I feel as if the first medal is just a matter of time, and coming fifth yet again, um, getting closer and closer. What else can I say?
Yeah.
It's sometimes just like a linear but slow progression, but getting there for sure.
Martine actually addresses that in the video as well. I think he says something very akin to what you just mentioned, that he does believe Snorek is on an upward trajectory and he's gonna get there very soon. So I hope that he keeps on pushing himself. What if I told you, Z's Wireless, that Snorek's team is identical to Marto Galladay's team from Buenos Aires, just a region
Oh,
prior?
I would not have picked that up. It's just like
It's true.
I look at that and it's like a bunch of Pokemon that I wouldn't bring to a tournament, but it's a
But
strong team.
the thing is, as we roasted Marto's team for this, the Shadow Talonflame weakness is undeniable.
Oh yeah.
Du-
Oh
Double
yeah. And
steals,
now he
Gastrodon,
competes in a
Wigglytuff.
region where that thing is actually existing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if I'm not
Yeah, that's
mistaken, Snorek
problems.
did play against Inadequance and
Oh
lost to
yeah.
Shadow Talonflame. So I don't know. Journalism at work here, right? We're trying to put the pieces together and connect the dots. But I really appreciate that you shouted out Snorek. I do think he's got a bright future. I want to see him continue to compete. But I think it's time that we move on to the first limited meta ever in the championship series.
Oh yeah.
For all
The
of us,
LAIC meta.
exactly, for LAIC 2026, I got to say this. For all of us old school Sylph trainers who came from the Sylph arena, something that I noticed over the past few weeks is that the Sylph Arena's entire goal was to create some kind of official tournament circuit where trainers competed in limited metas every month and that you had prizes, you had official support. I mean, talking with the founders of the Sylph Arena, this is what they told me. That's what they wanted, right? And they felt like all the work that they were doing was kind of building towards this goal. And what shocked me about LAIC is kind of like the reaction from the community. in a sense, because if you were playing Sylph back in the day, back in 2019, 2020, 2021, you knew that this was kind of where things were headed. And then the pandemic hit, everything got derailed. But now we're at a point where in the official championship series, we have a limited meta for money, for prizes, an official format with Pokemon support. This is the dream of the Sylph Arena realized. This is the culmination of everything that they were trying to build when PvP had no structure and no place and was just a side feature in the game. And what shocked me is that the community just, I don't know if people picked up on that or they just didn't want to talk about it or they didn't think of it in that sense or if too much time had passed or whatever reason it was, but people just didn't celebrate it in the same way that I thought they would, which I found like equal parts kind of disappointing, but also made me question like, man, am I just getting
It's
old? Do I just
like
remember the
I do
old
not like,
goals?
obviously, like your personal PvP history is like very tightly connected with Sylph, like as I think, was it the first world champion or was it just like a world champion? Not that that just detracts from it in any way.
I actually will die on this hill because the quote unquote first world champion was Shmusiv in Chicago, and he only beat another trainer from NA, whereas I had to beat trainers from all of the regions. And Shmusiv
Oh,
was
like actual
technically
world champion then.
he was technically just a continental champion, but I was a world champion. So I will die on that
Okay,
hill.
okay. So we have gotten the technicalities out of the way. But yeah, I just wonder whether like Sylph was certainly like huge in the pre-pandemic days
Yeah.
and even larger than LAIC maybe. I don't know the exact numbers, but um I
Los
feel like those
so
mega tournaments,
yeah,
like
sorry, Los Angeles had
they
over
drew a crowd,
400.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
which is more than we saw at LAIC now, which is like I see how you were a little bit disappointed when you saw those numbers and maybe compared them, contrasted them with what we had like 5 years ago or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, because obviously that's not really where we want to be. Um, but I think for many players in this day and age, their frame of reference is just the championship series as a whole. And they may be a little disconnected from the Sylph days, with Sylph having shut down, and
Mhm.
it having been a while since. So I don't know. Maybe so. I actually wasn't around for much of Sylph. Like I played during the pandemic a couple remote tournaments, but I wasn't good or too interested in PvP back when all the big stuff was happening, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I don't really have those memories, and I'm already one of the old heads, right? Like I've been at it for a while, so I don't know. Maybe that angle isn't one that translated to too many of the current competitors.
Mhm.
Um, and then the question is, okay, this is now a different meta from what I typically play week in, week out in Open Great League practice. It's like new Pokemon. It's also like kind of the same Pokemon on every team. How do I feel about that?
Yeah.
Do I have all the Pokemon that are good and necessary built? Maybe I'm not somebody who gets to travel to too many regionals and therefore I couldn't access the Turtonator spawns that happen at
Mm.
those. So how do I now get a PvP IV Turtonator? Oh, Medicham is on the top 7 teams.
Yeah.
Medicham, that was a couple years ago, right? And it hasn't really spawned in a while, and it's a Pokemon that needs to be level 50. How do I get that in time for the tournament? That's not the greatest position to be in. And yeah, I feel as if like Runorigus, strong Pokemon, you have to win how many raids to evolve that?
Very
That's
hard to get.
another that's like another like gatekeeping mechanism that this meta inadvertently introduced. So
Mhm.
while I see the fascination, and I was actually one of the voices that was um most excited about limited metas coming to the championship series when they were first announced.
Yeah.
And also, um, I am still somebody who says that this is a good meta, a good to great meta, just from like a balancing perspective.
Yes.
I still felt as if we didn't stick the landing the way we would have wanted to. And that
Mm.
doesn't need to mean that we just never try anything again, because I love that they tried. But especially on day one of the competition, I talked to a lot of people who are interested in PvP, hitting Legend consistently, with a casual interest in the Play Pokemon Championship Series, but not as deep of an investment in like super technical plays or top player storylines as we maybe are. They
Yeah.
watch because they kind of love PvP and they want to see the different strategies that players come up with. And then every player had the same strategy. And a lot of people told me, like a lot of people meaning more than half a dozen, not like 20, but like relative to the amount of people that I talked to about it, it
Yeah.
was a pretty prevalent sentiment that it was too much of the same after just like an hour or two of watching. And even though I think limited metas are very fun to explore, the winning team of NiteTimeClasher consisted of the top 6 most used Pokemon, and that exact team, while not being every team in Top Cut, it also featured, like, I think it featured 3 times this exact combination of 6 Pokemon in the top 8.
Yeah.
It featured
Correct.
even more often in the top 32. And when it differed in 1 or 2 slots. So
Correct.
this may feel really good for a competitor to play because a lot of the matchups, even though there's a caveat to that too, but we get to that when we get to the grand finals. Um, Even though a lot of the matchups that we see are very neutral and the outcome doesn't feel obvious from the lead situations oftentimes, um, it also works better for the competitor playing the game than for the spectator watching it. And on a stage as big as an IC, I want this to work as an advertisement for the game as well. And I feel the variety of strategies brings some interest and excitement that kind of has gotten lost with LAIC abolishing the team building component to some degree.
Hmm.
But that is just my take on the issue. And I know that's been like controversially discussed on the various social media platforms, be it Discord or Twitter X. And there's certainly takes on this that are equally as valid as mine. Um, and again, like I would have loved to play this meta, but there's a lot of things that need to be considered when making such a big decision, and I am very curious as to what it will look like for the UIC meta. I like we will get to have a wholly different limited meta with Spidops being the top dog, with
Hmm.
I think Licky Licky is going to play a big role. And the Pokemon that I didn't expect that really did shine in that practice yesterday is Grimmsnarl may actually be good enough to take an international championship, which is so
Yeah.
fun. Like you wouldn't think of those Pokemon as being of that caliber. Um, but will we see enough uniqueness, enough individuality in the approaches that the players can take? Or will it just be like very technical play that is exciting to watch for a certain clientele? Will it be storylines that we want to follow because we know those people already? Or will it just be a good viewing experience for the casual fan?
Well, to your point about accessibility, if you look at the two Pokemon you mentioned, being Spidops and Grimmsnarl, Tarantula had its event, and it was, I think, the first time. Well, no, it was the first time that Pokemon had ever appeared, and I think the event only went on for what, like 1 week, maybe 10 days, something like that. I've just
And
looked
then
at my own.
also, I think it went on before we knew that Spider Ops would be so crucial for EUIC. So people
True.
may not have played that event as much.
Exactly. I mean, I open the app every single day. I play every single day. I try to do my daily incense, right? At minimum, at least grind 30 minutes a day. I, in my account right now, have 42 Tarantula. That's all that I caught. And then I have one Spite Ops that's actually a really high rank that I decided to build. So in terms of accessibility, that already feels like a tough one because you do need a lot of regular canning. Thankfully, no XL, but you need a lot of regular canning to build a good Spite Ops. And then, second, for Grimmsnarl, if you weren't playing the wild area, are you going to have, the Impidimp that you need to evolve into Grimmsnarl? Because otherwise, you could have Gigantamax, and maybe you could re-roll it through a trade to try to get IVs under 1500, but still, that's a little bit tricky too. So, I mean, you pointed out something really well, not only with the Metacham accessibility, but the Turtonator accessibility, which I remember catching a lot of those at New York Go Fest. If people were not playing Go Fest or Global Go Fest this past summer, then you probably missed out on Turtonator too. So that's such an important point to make because the accessibility is still a big issue. And we kind of take it for granted that a lot of our top trainers already have all the tools. But for new players trying to get into it, it's really an uphill silent battle. So I wasn't even thinking about it in that sense, but I think you make such a good point. And as I was looking over this top 32, I was trying to think like, what are ZZ and I actually going to talk about? Like we could talk about Turtonator having, if you look at the top 12, I think I have a note here. If you look at the top 12 Turtonators for LAIC, it looks like we have, oh, here it is. We had 10 Turtonators on the top 12 teams. 7 of the 10 had Incinerate, and 3 out of the 10 had Ember. And honestly, there's not a whole lot to say about that, but I just wanted to bring it up because Inadequanec said that Ember Turtonator was a fraud, and then Potter took it all the way to grand finals. So we sang your praises, Inadequanec, but now we got to roast you. So that being said, like you pointed out, the teams are only different by one or two picks. Maybe you've got Togekiss on Potoman's team, or maybe you've got um, Dusknoir on Doonebug's team, or maybe you have Bronzong on Bruno's team. But other than that, there's not a whole lot to talk about. This is kind of like 32 clones walk into a room, and you just want to know who the best clone is, right?
Kind of. Like, honestly, we really lucked out with the day three that we got
Yes.
because, like, obviously, like, NiteTimeClasher, just playing the best Pokemon in the best way will grant you an international championship at the end of the day. But Patoman with Dusknoir and Togekiss, Mato with Runerigus and Vespiquen,
Mm-hmm.
like, each at least had two Pokemon that kind of were their own thing. So it didn't, like, at face value, you wouldn't initially like know that this meta only had like 10 Pokemon because
Yes.
they kind of all featured on the various teams in day three. And we also had one of each major region. Sorry, Oceania. Um, but there were like a lot of good storylines. You had Pato, the young European upstart who actually made day three 4 times in one calendar year. How incredible is that? Like, imagine like you win the European International Championship, then you go to New Orleans, you make another day three, then you go to Worlds, you make the grand finals,
Yep.
and now you have another shot at an international and only fall at the last hurdle even after resetting the bracket in the most dramatic of fashions.
Yep.
And you walk away you walk away just like recently having turned 18 with 4 trophies. 4 trophies from this calendar year. That is probably not going to be repeated ever. Um,
Yeah.
so that was a fun storyline. Then Marto and his Vespiquen. Marto loves a bulky copium flying type.
He
And
does.
like I loved seeing the Vespi. I feel like the Vespi, even though it's a bug, it's kind of just like a Metang equivalent in a
Yeah.
way because you
Very
have the
similar.
Fury Cartel, you have the answer to Oranguru in that, you have the
Exeter, right?
neutral bulk. So yeah, that was fun to see. honestly, like kudos to Macho. Like nobody has ever just like defended their title at one of these. Um, so coming third is as close as one realistically could have expected to get, I suppose. And I guess like day three Mato wasn't the best Mato that he could be. I think he knows that. I think we know that.
Yeah.
But even even then, it is so impressive to just like enter high level event after high level event and come so far. And now he just got a trophy in a different color. Like, what's there to be
Mhm.
mad about? Overall, just another impressive run, and obviously the golden boy. What else? What else is there to say than hard work pays off? Because if there was to be another NiteTimeClasher victory, it would probably be in the meta where just knowing the ins and outs of your matchup is more crucial than anywhere else. Because
Yes.
I think there's few people out there that put so much effort into preparation, and like it's like a practice makes perfect type of moment, because Nighttime Clasher came onto the scene when everybody else was already an established name, and then just put in the work, put in the work, put in the work. Had some ups and downs. The downs weren't that far down, but I know that he wanted more out of the European events he attended earlier in the
Mhm.
season.
Yeah.
But then already a strong showing in Vegas. But obviously he cannot win in the US ever. He only ever wins on foreign soil. Um, and then just an absolute masterclass in terms of execution, in terms of team reading, and also kind of in terms of playing to impossible win conditions and
True.
the decision making that goes along with it. I guess we'll get to that as well once we get to the grand finals, because those were pretty remarkable. And also, not day three, a trophy nonetheless. It's Saxon, fourth place. High level
Mhm.
consistency achieved again. Congratulations, because I also know that that was one of our top trainers that like had an interesting journey from the greatest to struggling to the greatest again, and now just consistently great, which is, I think,
Yeah.
where he wanted to be after his initial Worlds victory. So that is very delightful to see yet again.
Yeah.
And
I think it
look at the
was.
competition too. I'm sorry, I'm just rambling on, but
That's okay. Go ahead.
international champion, international champion, international champion, like NTC, now also international champion. Not previously, but hey, um, out of pocket, international champion. JW Naldo, international champion, am I right?
Correct.
And then we have Zardi, one of the most on form trainers, and Septalize, one of the like. Is there a Septalize tournament that he enters and doesn't top eight at this point?
Yeah.
Um, Again, I mentioned it in Vegas, one of the names that comes to mind when a breakthrough tournament is due. Um, like, if we achieved anything, it's the absolute top trainers actually like rising to the top and making up those top spots from
Mhm.
this very neutral meta.
In your top 9th to 16th, you got Doonebug, who we just spent so much time just bragging about with 6 medals. You look at the next column over, you've got Elche, who played 5 Pokemon at Worlds in Yokohama and still finished in the top 4, right? I mean, there's just so many talented trainers. I agree with you. The depth is just unreal when you look at this bracket. I had a few points that I wanted to make. So the first was actually on Marto, and we talk about expectations, right? I interviewed Marto and Harjeff leading up to the LAIC pre-show. I thought we had a really funny interview. I asked them what they would say to each other if they paired against each other at LAIC, and their answers were hilarious. They were so good. I think Marto. I put him on the spot. I said, "Marto, you pair against Harjeff. What would you say to him?" And Marto said, "Good luck at LAIC next year." It's like really funny answers. But what I wanted to say about Marto is that you can tell, and I think I know this because I've been watching his progress for so long. You can tell that there's a new level of expectation on his mind, because he changed his profile picture on X to a photo from LAIC. But I saw it on the stream, and I saw it again when I looked at his profile picture. He's almost like giving like a sideways smirk, almost like a kind of like happy to be here. I'm gonna be polite, but I'm not over the moon. I'm not thrilled. I'm not content with what I have. And there's like this prevailing vibe. I don't know if he's going to agree with me or disagree with me, but this prevailing vibe that he should be that first place winner, that he should be the champion. And that's the bar that he's set for himself at this point. Understandably so, having won last year, right? But I just think it's so funny because his previous picture from LAIC was him like popping off. It's that iconic thing where he's like screaming on the stage and his arms are spread wide. And then he changed it. And if you look at it, it's just him kind of like smirking, like, okay. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out because a lot of the players will tell you that they're happy with something, but then you look at their body language and it tells you something a little different. Speaking of what players do versus what they say, I listened to C. Leonardo's conversation with NiteTimeClasher, and I was laughing to myself when you were talking about NiteTimeClasher putting in the work, studying matchups, going the extra mile, working really hard. Because when you listen to his talk with C. Leonardo, he says the same thing like 8 times in a row when discussing the grand finals. He keeps telling Leonardo, I was just trying to RPS Pato Man. Yeah, this lead failed, so I tried to RPS him a different way. Yeah, he kept bringing Turtonator, so I RPS'd him with Gyarados. Yeah, he kept leading Shadow Dust Noir, so I kept on leading Dust Noir, so I kept on leading Oranguru. I RPS'd him that game as well. That's what he kept saying over and over and over again. I kept
He
RPSing
is
Pato
not
Man.
wrong, but
I
first of all,
know.
team rating is a skill, and also the entirety of LAIC cannot just be subsumized by looking at the grand finals alone, because
True.
it was quite the gauntlet to get there. Like,
True.
let me pull up the challenge bracket. NiteTimeClasher on day 2, first round, 2-0 against Dash and Ash, 2-1 against Stout Muffins, 2-0 against Patoman, 3-0 against Martugalde, 3-2, like 2-3 against Patoman, and 3-1 against Patoman. Like,
Right.
it's like it's not just like, oh, I RPS him often enough. Like, he knew he came from the winner's side of the bracket, so he could allow himself to just make those calls.
Yeah.
Um, and he just needed to get it right often enough. And like that was just kind of the name of the game because of the team that Pato brought, in which Dusknoir was by far his strongest Pokemon, but also by far the Pokemon that could get RPS the most easily. Because
Yeah.
Oranguru is always a free bring, and it just has such a dominant matchup. So yeah, it's just like it became pretty RPS in the grand finals, which is what I wanted to bring up to counter the arguments of the people that mostly correctly, but like not entirely correctly, pointed out that this meta was so neutral and it was
Mhm.
so good, and I never want to play OGL again. And it was always like like everybody always had a shot at winning this. And I have 3 of the grand final matches
Okay.
as just like NTC RPS Pato next game. And we just went over the Las Vegas matches. They weren't like that. They were
True.
like a little lopsided because one of the players had a team comp advantage, and it wasn't as much the case here. Um, but at least you had some interaction, whereas we really had 3 individual matches that were decided upon the login. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's such nuance to it as well because if you zoom forward through the grand finals and into the grand finals reset, game 4 of the grand finals reset, NiteTimeClasher led Metacham into Dustoir, and he had a Metang in the back. So he was ABA weak to Dustoir and still ended up winning
kind
that
of
game.
AAA, because the Dewgong that
Ah,
was in between was
true.
like, that's also not a great match up against Dusknoir. And that is such an interesting last game, because you would
Yeah.
think, like, if you lead that line of 3 into a Dusknoir, that's essentially game over. 2-2, we go to a decisive game 5. But no, because what Pato has in the bag is two flyers and one problem. How do
Mhm.
I respond to a Dewgong safe swap? But also, you think that with those two Pokemon, it's impossible that there would be a Metang in the bag, right? So
Yeah.
you don't really plan for that. And you just use up your Dusknoir to neutralize the Dewgong, and then you would still have a solid matchup against the Medicham in the back, and
Mhm.
then you sweep whatever else is there that isn't a Metang. And like your lose condition is it being a Metang, and it was a Metang. Like,
Yeah. During Nighttime Clashers talk with C. Leonardo, I do recommend it, right? It doesn't have a lot of views. I wish people would support these interviews a bit more because they're actually really fun. And C. Leonardo plays the footage for his guests so that they can watch it in real time and commentate on what happened. But Nighttime Clasher said he played Potaman 11 total games. In 10 of those games, he had a favorable lead, but still lost four of them. So you could argue that there was a lot of nuance, and sometimes the unpredictability of the team comps was Nighttime Clasher's advantage. But yeah, like you said, the last thing you would expect to see as that third Pokemon was Metang, and you could kind of see it in Potaman's face when it came out. He was just like, "Man, I think this is it." Tough one. I do want to say that this was also a very tough challenge for the commentary team, and we spent a lot of time talking about competitors, but I also want to talk about the commentator side of it as well, because this is our first limited meta. These are Pokemon that not a lot of people play. I mean, you might play Metang in Go Battle League every now and then if you have the dust, the candies to build one, because it is rather expensive. You might play Turtonator occasionally, depending on the cup. Gyarados is probably the most palatable alongside Dewgong, but these are Pokemon that people don't really use. They don't really see in a competitive light. And then when you do have such homogeny among the Pokemon that are used, it can be very tough to kind of communicate nuance or to communicate excitement or dynamics, right? When you see the same thing over and over and over again. I just wanted to compliment Rise, because I think that Rise put on a generational cast. And I messaged him about this, right? I've told him that I thought he was great. But I think that Rise did such a good job of speaking to nuance, to making things exciting. I think that Leo was an incredible pair partner for Rise as well. I thought those two were stellar. And it was funny because when I told Rise this, he replied to me. He said, "Yeah, Nighttime Clasher watched back the video, and he said that he learned some things about the matchups from listening to my commentary." And I said, "What? The champ is learning from Rise? What?" But
that's
that's just
fun.
the way it goes sometimes.
But
But
yeah,
yeah,
um, towards that, I earlier mentioned that I spoke to a bunch of people about their experience with the broadcast specifically, and I've heard it more than once that actually Rye's commentary actively stood out to them, like to a point where some of them weren't considering Rice a standout caster in his initial casts, but really came around to him and his ability on the casting mic during LAIC because like you said he had a generational cast, and I feel as if a lot of the like you obviously have an ear for that and an eye for that, what makes a caster a great caster, because you're one of the OGs, but it also has to work for the casual listener at home who
exactly.
like is a consumer but doesn't really look at it from the caster's perspective, and it worked to treat. And I think it also like that is another part, like how do we do our part from the casting side to keep this engaging when maybe we can't just talk about a crazy spice pick every other matchup.
Exactly.
um and yeah, I can only echo your sentiment because it's what essentially everybody who had an opinion on this that I talked to agreed upon, that this was a fantastic performance.
Yeah, I think even Inadequanec, I think he posted. He said, "Rise is one of my new favorite casters because of what he's doing with this LAIC show. I cannot believe how hard he's crushing this." So I think the sentiment was pretty universal. So Rise, if you're listening, it's not just me, it's not just ZZ. A lot of folks are giving you compliments, man. So you should enjoy it because you really did well. So incredible show, incredible players. I know incredible is kind of a loaded word, but when you look at this top 8 bracket, this top 32 bracket, what other word can you use to describe it? Potaman coming close to another championship, but not quite getting there. Marto begrudgingly taking his bronze trophy home as well. And then it's Axon. I mean, man, this makes me excited, ZZ. This makes me so excited for EUIC coming up in February.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it's going to be so fun actually. Like again, I only played 5 best of 3s yesterday, and I'm certainly like very far from having an idea of what team to bring, but I have an idea now of how some of the Pokemon play and what Pokemon could be utilized to tackle the Pokemon that now emerge as dominant. And man, like having a Grimmsnarl meta for EUIC, Grimmsnarl hailing from the Gala region, which was based on the UK as well, so kind of topical.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, one of the things that I liked the most about my experience playing this was that even though Spidops is a very strong Pokemon, it didn't even feel all that necessary because most people designed their team around having strong answers into Spidops. Like they had rollout users, they had bug poison types that resisted the bug bites. They had peg seeking, a lot of peg seeking, which is like
Oh my god.
if I told you
Tauntaun?
like a year ago, like peg
Tauntaun
seeking
Batuz?
is going to be a big deal for next year's EU, I see. Yeah, this game changes pretty quickly at times. And yeah, I
Wow.
just was really impressed with the variety of picks that I saw succeed. And I personally tried Shadow Tyranitar, and Shadow
Oh,
Tyranitar is a threat if you cover it from Spidops. So
we'll see.
they're
There,
like
there are a few other Fury Cutters. I mean, let's not forget about Cricketune. Am I right?
Cricketune.
Rank
I do
rank
not have a
11?
PvP Cricketune. I have a shiny, it has horrible IVs. I have 3 Crickettot that I could evolve. I will not evolve any of them. All of them have terrible IVs and only exist because I never clean my storage. I do not have a Cricketune that's worth building for Great League.
What if I told you, ZZ, that I not only have one rank 1 Cricketune, but I have two of them.
Oh no,
So,
he's
too
playing
bad
double Cricketune at EUIC.
too
Watch
bad I
out,
can't
folks.
put them both on the same team. But
Uh-uh.
that's neither here nor there. But seeing Cricketune at number 11 is honestly
Putting
crazy.
2 Cricketune on the same team is even more seal of nostalgia.
That's true. Boulder Cup, the OGs. Exactly. One thing I did want to mention, and like you said, I'm not really sure where this EUIC meta is going to go. I kept on telling myself that I was going to take it slow for December and then really dive in hard come January. I've already been announced as a caster for EUIC, so I'm really excited to work on that event, to commentate that, and I'm going to do my best possible Rise impression to try to give good commentary to everyone. But one thing I did want to mention is that a lot of the buffs in the new Precious Path season feel a little bit, like you said, they buff Pokemon from obscurity into being relative, but they don't actually like move the needle on the top meta. One adjustment that I do think is going to show up big at EUIC is actually the Dragon Tail Dunsparce, which, if you look at it on its face, is not a big deal for Open Great League. But in this meta, there might be some play.
Yeah. Yeah, that felt very catered to that specific meta because dragons do play a role in that cup. I have seen people play Shadow Dragonair. I have had a Dragalge on my own team, which is again one of those poison types that resist bug bite and are therefore pretty excellent against opposing Spidops.
Love it.
But there's even more dragons that could feasibly be made work. Like I was considering Arctibax briefly. Um, Zweilous is technically an option. I don't know whether I want to double down on bug bite weaknesses after I already am so committed to my Shadow Tyranitar. Um, but there's certainly a lot of targets for a Dragon Tail using normal type. Like
Mm-hmm.
the rollouters are one thing, but having an anti-dragon specialist among those normal types, it sets it apart and like you have a more distinct option compared to just, oh, like We have the third rollouter, but this time with fewer stat points. That's just not as good of a selling point. And between Dragon Tail and the 9-turn pacing to Body Slam, which
Mm.
is another move that it received, I can see the Dunsparce actually being a serious threat. I just don't have one. This is like another thing. I have a bunch of good Dunsparce. I don't know which of them to evolve to the Dunsparce because none of them stand out as a top rank.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, ZZ. Do I have to flex again?
Oh geez.
All right. I'll just show you. I'll just show you what I've got. So if you're watching the YouTube version, you can see it. I've got a rank 2, I believe that is. Yeah, rank 2 to Dunsparce. A rank
Incredible.
12, which is pretty nice. I've got a rank 395, but it's got 8 attack for winning those vital charge type priorities. A rank 5, alternatively a Ultra League rank 4. A rank 9 with 3 attack, so I get a little bit of attack there if I need it. And that's it. So I've got
Okay,
5
but my
options.
question is, does any of your the Dunsparces have 3 segments?
Ooh. I think I evolved one of them that does, maybe 2. Let me see. Because I think I just named them 3 segments. Let me see. I'm searching. Yes, I have 2 that have 3 segment, but they've got total trash dirt IVs. So I'm not going to play them.
Incredible.
One's a
This man is
96.
the Dunsparce master. I did not
I
know that about you.
don't know about that. Um, but yeah, this meta is going to be really interesting. I want to compete in some chemical tournaments. I want to study it a bit more. I want to find my footing so I can talk about it more fluidly. But for now, I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add. There's a lot of spicy things here. I'll try to put the top rankings graphic up on the YouTube version. So we've got Miltank, Licky Licky, Dunsparce, the normal rollouters, as you pointed out. Pinsir coming in at number 19 as well, which is kind of cool. Some dragons. I think Dragalge is super sick. It's one of my favorite designs. I hope that it's successful. And then Grimmsnarl, one of only 2 dark types, the other being Sableye. So I do think that Grimmsnarl and Sableye will be strong. Well, sorry, there's Zweilous as well. There's a 3rd dark type. And
And
there's
that's like
Hydreigon.
another. Okay,
And
this
there's
is like
Tyranitar.
already
And
like
there's Thieves.
it's like UIC meta nerd talk, but like right now, Dragon Tail Dragalge is recommended. But what if you just protect yourself really well from other dragons? For example, with one of those Dunsparce, um, and then run acid on the Dragalge to turn the Grimmsnarl matchup from a bad one to a really dominant one. That could be
Ooh,
an idea.
wow. Wow. I like what you're cooking. I think there's something there. Again, there's a whole lot of room for variability, especially as we're early on in this meta and people are still figuring things out. So I encourage everyone to workshop move sets, to try different things. I don't think you'll want to play anything too silly like Waterfall Kingdra, but I do think that there is some variability
Now,
there.
oh God, now I'm intrigued, and I'm not gonna try it.
Yeah, you probably will try it. I bet you
There's
will.
also like with all the Dragon Breath users, you may want to look at some of the IV thresholds where a little bit of attack weight will actually grant you a full point of extra damage per half second, with some of those Dragon Breathers. So sometimes maybe the rank one isn't even the optimal one, and if you have like maybe some funky IV Kingdra may still be worth looking into.
Oh, interesting. I'm just reminding myself as well that Seaking can also learn Poison Jab. So I don't think
That
the
is
energy
true.
generation is that good, but maybe
If you really want to be anti Grimmsnarl, that is another option.
it is. It looks like. Oh, you actually don't win the Grimmsnarl in the even shields with
Mhm.
Poison Jab, so never mind. But anyways, ZZ, I think we're approaching close to the end of our broadcast. We've already covered several different tournaments. Do you want to talk about the Precious Paths meta and then maybe kind of bits and pieces of things as we close out?
Yeah, let's just take like a quick look at what we can expect from the meta changes. I have the blog post pulled up,
Okay,
and I'll just go through the attack changes real quick. I guess we'll probably see that on screen as well for the YouTube version.
correct.
Um, there's going to be a powder snow. But there's not going to be. There already has been a powder snow damage increase, so that it now mirrors Shadow Claw, being 6 power. So it's 6 power, 8 energy on a 2-turn move. Icicle Spear, bringing Wall Rain back to the forefront, and also a couple other Icicle Spear users, going from 65 power to 70 power, now mirroring moves like, I think, Psyshock or Aqua Jet.
Mhm.
So that's pretty nice. Then a change aimed at the Master League with Geomancy, the signature fast attack of Xerneas, going from 4 power to 8 power, making that Pokemon viable again. Shadow Ball energy cost decreased from 55 to 50 energy. So that means that, for example, a Jellicent now reaches a Shadow Ball in only 4 hexes, as well as a Licky Licky that now only needs 4 rollouts to reach that powerful charge attack. Shadow Sneak. This is a change that has some people perplexed, where the power increased greatly to
Mhm.
75, but the energy cost also increased. So now you just have essentially worse Shadow Ball by 25 power.
Yep.
Um, which, like, I don't know, maybe it encourages Giratina to run the cheaper Ancient Power. But overall, not the most impactful change. However, foul play is pretty nice. You don't think much of it on like at first sight, but going from 60 to 65 power means that now you take a shield of Ferret with the Shadow Sableye in the zero shield scenario. So Shadow Sableye may be a big beneficiary of that foul play buff. Um, I always want to say Onion Ring, but the move is called Oblivion Wing. That is Yveltal's signature move. So the counterpart to Xerneas, both of which will play a big part in the Kalos tour that we can expect
Mhm.
in February, I'm pretty sure. So now you have a guaranteed defense buff. I think Oblivion Wing, other than that, being a clone of Dark Pulse, so 50 energy, 80 damage, which isn't the greatest, but viable enough. And now that you have the defense boost, certainly a strong option and worthy of being a signature attack. Brick Break going from 40 energy, 40 power to 40 energy, 50 power. So that is now a more reasonable option to run on a Pokemon like a Furret. For example, in a limited meta, I'm pretty sure that Furret is legal for EUIC as well,
Correct.
but prefers Quick Attack because a lot of Darks resist Sucker Punch, and Brick Break may come in handy against all those rollouting normal types or Dark types. Meteor Mash has its energy cost decreased, meaning now you hit a 100 base power move for only 45 energy. This is a big help for Metagross in the Master League, but also for Clefable in Raid and especially the Ultra League, where now you have a non-stab Frenzy Plant clone of the Steel type variety that you reach in only 10 turns with Fairy Wind pacing very efficiently to that 45 energy attack. Vice Grip, a move that wasn't really talked about at all, but existed in the game for a long time, going from 40 power to 70 power at 40 energy. This is helpful for a Pokemon like Mawile, Shadow Mawile, but also for a Pokemon that newly received it in this update, Regidrago, getting a big rework with Dragon Energy being decreased by 10 power points, but Vice Grip now being added to its moveset, giving it both a bait move as well as a cheaper coverage option than Hyper Beam.
Mhm.
Um, Also, there is Spatial Rent, Palkia's signature move, being nerfed ever so slightly by a +5 energy increase. That essentially just means that you get to your big move a little more slowly, which doesn't do all that much to deter Palkia's dominance in Master League, but certainly helps to make it feel a little more balanced. And finally, Parabolic Charge, the energy cost increasing from 45 to 50 energy. um, that makes it so that Dedenne doesn't get to the attack in 5 Thundershocks anymore, but needs 6 for the first. And the same goes for Belly Bolt, which also is a sucker puncher and overall, with either fast move, a big presence in the Ultra League. And it goes from top meta to just meta there. So that is all the changes in terms of the attacks that are actually being modified. Now, the attack availability updates, there's a lot to talk about. I don't think we need to talk about all of it, but
Mhm.
some key changes are Tentacruel receiving payback for the Ultra League, now having better play against the buff Jellicent. Um, then another move that is newly added on Doublade is Shadow Claw alongside Sacred Sword. So the pre-evolution of Aegislash now actually viable. Around Swampert levels of bulk, you don't need XLs for it at all. Very nice that Honedge now is also a GBL encounter, so you are able to farm those little swords, evolve it once, and have a bit of a spice pick with good coverage. Then you have Ludicolo getting also a double attack availability
Mm.
update with Astonish as its fast attack and Weather Ball as its new bait move. Very flexible Pokemon now, has a decent amount of bulk actually, like ferret levels, and can do stuff both in the Ultra League where it needs to be near a hundo and in the Great League. Um, Other than that, a big winner is Blaziken, now receiving Ember and Aura Sphere, being very spammy and being able to put out a lot of damage very fast, still suffering from its general frailty. And the probably most talked about update from this last iteration is Gorgeist. Gorgeist receiving Incinerate and therefore becoming a pretty strong core breaker to Unova Stunfisk and Shadow Scizor cores, which have been roaming the Go Battle League in past seasons. It's the first non-step Incinerate user and has a very nice synergy now with the 10 turn pacing to Seed Bomb, and also Shadow Ball now being a move that you can double up on. So that was my pretty long-winded review of all the move changes. And yeah, what are you thinking, Speedy? Is this going to meaningfully change up the meta, or is it just a bunch of nice to haves? I feel like I've given the answer away with this.
Well, as NiteTimeClasher said, we're going to be eating the same soup for the next 3 months, but at least it's a tasty soup, right? I have
I
a
do
couple.
not disagree with that, actually.
I have a couple thoughts. So on attack changes, I've heard really good things about Geomancy. I heard some folks saying that they didn't think Xerneas was going to be that viable, but this change from 4 to 8 power actually helps it quite a bit. And it's actually a really, really nice way to bring that Pokemon back in.
I
Xerneas is
have a
awesome.
Shundo build. I have a Shundo build, so this is
Ooh,
very important to me.
heck yeah. No, it's an awesome Pokemon. The roll compression on Xerneas is unmatched. I'm glad to see it be meta. Shadow Sneak changing from 50 to 75 power, essentially becoming a worse Shadow Ball, as you mentioned. I'm pretty sure they meant to type Nightshade here, but they just picked Shadow Sneak instead. I think that was the intent, but we'll never know. Oblivion Wing, I've heard, has not helped Evaltal that much, just because there are still so many threats to being a Dark Flyer. Vice Grip, here on the blog post, it's spelled Vice. That's actually incorrect. It's Vice Grip with an S, and that just shows that Niantic misspelled it on their official comps, which is interesting. Um, Spatial Ren energy cost being increased. I've heard that they're trying to rein in Palkia in Master League, and it's still really strong. I don't know if Spatial Ren, the nerf on that is enough to do it. You might need to hit Aquatail as well, which I know would also hurt a lot of other Pokemon. So there's a lot of collateral when you look at an adjustment like that. But let me know if you think the Master League feels more balanced, if there's less Palkia. And Parabolic Charge. This honestly feels like this feels like Dedenne was the most wanted villain in the meta for like a few months, and Niantic is like, all right, let's nerf it the season after, and then Dedenne is like far gone, retired, like Thanos living on a farm somewhere, all shriveled up, just doing whatever, and then Niantic is like, no, hit him again, nerf him again, hit Parabolic Charge, and then Thor shows up with his axe, and you know what happens after that. But
I
this
don't
feels like
mind it because of the Ultra League implications, right? Because Bellibolt
true.
was just like very dominant.
It's actually a really good point. That's a very good point. I didn't consider Ultra League, so maybe that was the intended target. As far as the attack availability updates, I did try Tentacruel early on. I agree with you; it's really fun, especially in Ultra League. I want to try Go Goat with Rock Slide. If you remember, this move was removed from it before it went live because it wasn't available worldwide to players, and everyone thought that pure Grass type Go Goat with Rock Slide was going to be too strong and it was going to destabilize the meta. So we actually didn't see the Rock Slide edition until now, after it's gotten a few more releases. Doublade, I've been impressed with that one. I like seeing it in Go Battle League this past rotation. It was really fun. Ludicolo to me seems like one of the biggest winners with the double buffs. Scroll. I tried Blaziken, still really, really flimsy. Milotic, with Dragon Tail and Aqua Tail is going to be interesting. I do want to see how that performs in the EUIC meta. Ludicolo with Weather Ball, good adjustment there. Kyogre with Avalanche. I've heard not so good things about this because it already
Oh,
has such good moves. You don't really want to give up something else for Avalanche. At the same time, it's so weak to dragons that even if you do eventually get to the Avalanche, it doesn't really make that big of an impact in the battles. So it's a little disappointing. Tyranitar with Dragon Breath. I know that there are Tyranitar whisperers like yourself, like Home Size Henry, that can make this Pokemon work, but I've struggled with it pretty mightily. It does seem fun, but it's just so flimsy and so glassy. I don't want to call it a fraud because I know that maybe it's just a skill issue on my part, but it's not as hot as I thought it would be. And then Gorgeist, I agree with you. I think Gorgeist is the biggest win. I think there was a very prominent battler who actually posted and said that they were going to make Gorgeist part of their personality for the next 3 months. I think I think there might have been a trainer from Germany, but my memory escapes me. And also, I haven't tried Soul Rock with Psywave and Fire Weather Ball yet, so maybe that'll be fun when we get to
I want to see
Vegas.
that in Love Cup when we have that again.
Oh, good call. Yeah, that could be fun. But that's my rundown. That's my scoop. On my big buffs list, I have Doublade, Ludicolo, and Gorgeist. Pokemon I want to try are Dudunsparce and Go-Goat. And then my frauds are actually Dragon Breath, Tyranitar, Aurasphere, Blaziken, and Avalanche Kyogre. So
Yeah,
that's my
like I
list.
think honestly, like my biggest buffs, they're a little boring. Like I'm a Gorgas believer. I think that we may see Shadow Ball, Jellicent, and Licky Licky a bunch more,
Mm,
just because you just pace to it to a very strong move very quickly now. Um, yeah, in terms of frauds, like I do agree with the Blaziken fraud assessment. I just feel as if that is it's just not it's just not bulky enough to
yes.
like if you can be like squishy and still good, but I think you can't just rely on charged attack pressure because if you can't farm anything down, which you can't really with Ember, like what are you even doing with your attack stat half of the time? Like the energy generation doesn't really care about your stats, so
You're just
you're
winning
just
charge
being
type
flimsy
priority.
for no reason. Oh, like I actually like Hydreigon. I do rate Fly Hydreigon. I do have that in my winners category as well.
Nice.
In terms of frauds, I think Smackdown and Play Rough on Ursaluna they're just draining our TMs at this point,
Yeah.
especially like Play Rough. Like, why do you give this Pokemon this move? It has a lot of better, cheaper moves, and this is not even stab. This is not even good damage per energy. Everybody wants to see Shadowclaw or Saluna. We'll get there eventually. I think Regidrago is a winner. I think Titan is a winner, but not really an OGL winner.
Mhm.
And there's two Pokemon that I want to point out for if they get one more attack, I think they'll be good. And those two are Milotic. I think Milotic needs a coverage move beyond a water type charge attack that
Mm,
is cheap enough to get to. Like maybe that would be a good avalanche target. And then
totally.
there's Hisuian Samurott, which now has really interesting coverage with Fury Cutter, with Sacred Sword, which with Icy Wind, with Dark Pulse. But
It's very good.
there's two things that I want to point out about Hisuian Samurott, which I currently consider a fraud. Um, it seems way better if you give it Sucker Punch, which it does learn, I'm pretty sure. Um, and also, it currently does not have a way of doing water type damage outside of Razor Shell, and
Mm.
that cannot be it. I don't know whether it even is eligible to receive Hydro Cannon because it's not the original recipe Samurott, but they need to do something about it because, like, a water Pokemon losing to Talonflame is not what I signed up for.
So I just went on PokemonDB.net, one of my favorite sites to look over move sets and things like that. Um, I don't actually. Oh man, I don't actually see. Oh wait, here we go. We're looking for Hydro Cannon. It
It's
can. It
probably.
can learn
Hmm?
it.
Oh,
Actually,
let's go.
it learns it in Generation 7. It's available to learn it as a tutor move. So it can learn that. It can also learn Water Pledge, whatever that is. So
Oh, it does learn both Aqua Tail and Aqua Jet through level up. So
yeah.
maybe like a nice Aqua Jet would be another option. And yeah, it does also learn Sucker Punch as a level up move.
Wait, ZZ, we can give it Brine.
Oh Jesus, let's not do
That
that.
that would be the best thing ever, right? No, I'm just kidding. Everything else you said was preferable. But yeah, there is potential. I agree with you. I think that's a really cool way to look at things too. Like which Pokemon are right on the cusp of being good. And I think that for Hisuian Samurott, it just needs a stab move, right? I mean, you can run Icy Wind, you can run Sacred Sword, but you really want something like Dark Pulse that at least has stab. You really want a water move that at least has stab. So yeah, I think that's something that's kind of hamstringing it a little bit. But yeah, like we talked about a few times, this meta doesn't feel like it's really moving the needle with the top six, the top 12 usage Pokemon in the Championship Series. You're probably going to see a lot of the same things over the next few weeks, unless a new Pokemon releases, like Torkoal. No, not Torkoal. What's it called? Colossal, for
Yes.
example. So if that comes out, maybe things will change. But as of right now, it's going to be the same soup for a little while.
Yeah. The Roly-Poly line that does involve Colossal as the last stage evolution is actually such a funny release because it is part of the second half of the Christmas event, and it is literally coal. We are getting coal for Christmas, Speedy.
Hey,
I
I
guess we weren't the goodest of boys this season.
I guess we deserve it, right? There's no other way I can look at it. Niantic is like, hey, you guys complain about the game so much. Well, you've been bad players, so we're going to give you coal.
Yes,
Guess that's what
we'll
it
be on
is.
our best behavior next year.
Surely, for the 10-year anniversary, we will stop complaining as Pokemon Go PvPers. Don't think it's ever going to happen, but we'll try. But yeah, I mean, we covered a lot. We started over in Buenos Aires. We talked about Las Vegas. We talked about Stuttgart. We talked about LAIC. We talked a little bit about the EUIC meta that's upcoming. We talked about our new Precious Path season. I had an idea. I'll say this real quick. Side tangent. I pitched to Niantic that they should have an Ultra Beast event. And in order to actually make routes more appealing, they should change the entire in game map to look like an Ultra Beast realm based on what part of
Oh,
the world you're in. So if you remember in the anime, they go to different kind of through spatial gateways to encounter each of the Ultra Beasts, and they all have like a different look. Pheromosa's world is a little different than Buzzwole's world. Stack Attack's world is a little different. My idea was to have basically a global goal where people had to explore routes through the Ultra Beast realm. And once we reach a certain amount of distance as a global community, we would get like a mega cool unlock. And that'd be a cool way to get people to do more routes, to do more exploring, to look at the in game map and actually be excited about it a little bit more. That was my idea. And when Precious Paths was announced, I was like, huh, paths, routes, sounds similar. Maybe we'll get a crossover, but I haven't heard any announcement thus far. So it might be another idea of mine that went down the drain. We'll see.
it does sound more intriguing than just like exchanging a postcard with Mateo.
Yeah, Mateo's useless.
So like, what is he even doing? Like,
I don't know. He's just
especially
posted up.
now that we like since we last got together, like they introduced remote trading. Like, we don't even need a postcard from like a faraway person. We can just like get a Pokemon from them if we're a high enough friendship level, which
It's
is
true.
far more intriguing than a postcard.
That's true. And I cannot wait to knock out my lucky trades. So if you are lucky friends with me, please open gifts when I send them to you. Let's get that lucky trade done because I'm sick of looking at like 70 lucky friends on my list every time I open it. So yeah, let's get that done, everybody. But ZZ, I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to mention or if you want to start to wrap up.
I want to mention that the last few North American regionals actually got announced in our downtime because we do have the Los Angeles regional for early May. We have the Indianapolis regional for late May. And I think there's also a special event in Puerto Rico again, but I'm blanking on when that is.
Yeah, very, very good question. So San Juan, Puerto Rico is March 7th and 8th.
All right.
So
So
shortly after
essentially, like,
Seattle.
yeah, that's starting off the that's probably like the first regional or special event with the new rule set from the March update. So that's going to be
Mhm.
exciting.
So On my graphic here, I have all the different events and I have them kind of cataloged by which season they're in. So the season we were just in, the Tales of Transformation, we had 12 events. This current season we're in, Precious Paths, we're going to have a lot fewer. We're only going to have 8. So we had 12, then we had 8. The third season of the calendar year tends to be our biggest. I think last year we had like almost 20 events in that meta. So if you're not a big fan of Precious Paths, you only have to eat that soup for 8 events, and then we're going to go into a bit much longer season with a lot more events. So that's always something to look forward to. And then our fourth in-game season is going to be NAIC. I guess there's an event in EU, and then also PJCS in Worlds. So only 4 events for that. So pretty short. But yeah, that's about it. It's been a long episode. It's been a good one. ZZ, I'm glad you're feeling better. Hope you have a wonderful time with your family for the holidays. And I'm still like so impressed with your intro and your willingness and your guts to sing it out. I admire it so much.
It was
And
like half sung, but it was the best I could do at the time.
you sold me on it. You sold me. But yeah, I'm excited for next year. A lot more content coming for you. We're going to try to revamp a few things. I think this month I just was kind of taking things a little bit easy, trying to conserve energy, get ready for next year. But come calendar year 2026, we're going to hit it really hard. So I'm excited for that. ZZ, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, as it always is. And unironically, I'll see you next year.
Oh yeah. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you, Speedy, to everyone celebrating at home. And yeah, we'll be back with probably the Toronto recap then. That's going to be an exciting one because there's a lot of talented trainers up there in Canada.
That's true. I can't wait. It's going to be cold, but it'll be really intense, really good competition, and a heck of a way to kick off our 10-year anniversary for the game and so many other things that are coming down the pipeline in the competitive circuit. So it's been great. It's been a great year of the show, our first complete year of the podcast. And
is it the first or the second?
I think it's the first, right? Or
We've
is
been
this
doing
second?
this for a while.
I thought we started at the beginning of the calendar year, like around January, February. Am I wrong?
I feel like this made it the second already.
Technically, we did half of last season, and then we did the first half of this season.
When was our first broadcast?
I'll have to look for it. I'm not sure. Let me see. I'll look it up right now. It's so funny because I opened Zencaster and it says that I'm not logged in, but I am. All right, here we go. First episode we ever published was Portland 2024 recap. 1 year ago.
But like 2024 recap means that was before 2024 Worlds, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm looking for the date and it doesn't give me the date. It just says 1 year ago. Let me see.
I feel like we must be nearing the end of our second year then. Because
yeah,
wait, was Portland the one that Abhinav won?
I think it was.
Because I always used that as my threshold for somebody who didn't make a grand final in the first 2 years of play Pokemon for Pokemon GO, like winning a tournament. And that was a thing that didn't happen until Meteorfolion won in Milwaukee. And that was almost 2 years. So now we're 2 months past Meteorfolion winning Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So this must be like almost 2 years ago.
Yeah. No, actually, you're right. It says the 2024 Portland regionals were January 6th and 7th of 2024. So first episode was January last year. And now we're finishing out this year. 1, 2.
Holy.
Yeah. We're going into year 3.
Incredible.
Wow. I can't believe it. I honestly can't believe it. I was so sure of myself when I said 1 year. Well, like we were talking about off camera, time has a funny way of moving, and I think that we've got a lot more of it than a lot of people think. Don't be so fatalist, everybody. Have a positive outlook and stay young. I think that's the most important thing.
Yes, yes. And be like us, be perpetually stuck in the season of timeless travels, and you'll have a good time.
Jesus. I don't know if there's a more fitting way to end that. All right, ZZ. I appreciate you so much, my friend. I'm looking forward to year 3, and we'll see all of you in 2026.